Chapter 25. At the entrance of the cellar, Han Dong witnessed the strength of an evil spirit at the 4-star difficulty level with his own eyes. The instant regeneration of an arm and the infusion of energy to completely suppress Chun-Li. An ordinary person would have no chance of survival when encountering such an evil spirit. The situation was much more troublesome than Han Dong imagined. So this is the 4-star difficulty. Edward Murray is really powerful. To be able to survive in the hands of such a terrifying inhuman monster, and even injure it to a certain extent. I only have one chance. If I fail, both Chun-Li and I will die here. Steady. He had to be steady. Even if life and death were on the line, even if Chun-Li's painful screams echoed in the cellar, even if he was not 100% sure of winning, Han Dong could not afford to panic. If he made any noise while approaching, he would definitely die. Energy invaded, and Chun-Li, whose neck was tightly strangled, was already in a suffocating state. She could not hold on for long. However, when she looked at Han Dong, her eyes did not contain a hint of a cry for help. Instead, she hoped that Han Dong would not care about her situation and could successfully approach her from behind. 5 meters, 4 meters, 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter. Stealth successful. Han Dong did not take out the plague doctor's short blade that he obtained from the hidden incident. After all, Han Dong was not a mysticism class at the moment, so he could not unleash the true power of this weapon. Recall that strange feeling. With prior experience, Han Dong held his breath and tried to recall this strange feeling in the nightmare. It was very uncomfortable. For some reason, when he thought of the faceless students sitting neatly in the classroom and the various objects with tentacles, Han Dong felt very uncomfortable. Maintaining this strange feeling, Han Dong slowly reached out and placed his right palm on the back of the evil spirit's head. During this process, a faceless tentacle mark appeared between Han Dong's eyebrows. When the evil spirit Akuman felt a slight touch at the back of its head, it was already too late. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Slippery, squirming sound. Some slippery and speckled tentacles quickly grew from the palm, ignoring the protection of the skull and directly penetrating Akuman's brain. There were no screams. There was no bleeding. There were no bloody scenes. He did not show any signs of a severely injured person. The evil spirit, Akuman, only turned around with a dazed expression and stared at the supposedly dead Han Dong with widened eyes. He did not understand why he could come back from the dead. He did not understand why Han Dong had such an ability. The evil spirit that should have been feared by others was now filled with fear in its eyes. It was as if the tentacles had implanted itself into its brain, causing Akuman to see a terrifying scene that it had never seen before. In Akuman's vision, Han Dong was no longer a brown-haired youth, but an indescribable person. A monster that could not be looked at directly and could evoke deep fear. Strange patterns of tentacles spread out around the evil spirit's eye sockets and quickly spread to its entire face, covering its entire body. Something inconceivable happened. The tentacle that grew out of Han Dong's palm was corrupted together with the evil spirit, Akuman. In a short period of time, it turned into a large pool of stinky sewage. Sizzle. The dirty water that fell to the ground slowly evaporated due to contact with the air. It's dead? An evil spirit that can regenerate so quickly that even flames can't burn it died. Just like that. Han Dong stared at the rapidly evaporating dirty water on the ground and could not believe his eyes. He originally thought that by doing this, he could seriously injure and interfere with the evil spirit's movements, and then let Chun-Li, who had broken free from her restraints, deal with it with a kitchen knife. He did not expect that this sneak attack would end it directly. Han Dong could not help but turn his head to look at his palm, curious about what these tentacles were. Curiosity aside, Han Dong still squatted down immediately. A bronze-rimmed syringe appeared in his palm, and the needle pierced into the dirty water on the ground. A section of cell essence was extracted. At the same time, an indescribable sense of weakness swept through Han Dong's body. The sense of weakness was much stronger than when he practiced using the tentacles in the room. In addition, the various actions, rushing, and mental exhaustion in the last half of the day. Han Dong could not hold on any longer. His eyes became lifeless, and he fell backward. Evil Spirit Event, Bewitched Director's Revision, Completion Method, Kill the Evil Spirit. Rewards given: Sad Face 1, Basic Fate Point. 2. Additional Fate Point, obtained by killing the Evil Spirit. 3. Card of Fate, Novice, X1. As you are a newcomer, no Fate Points have been allocated yet. Please first allocate your Fate Points to determine your main class. Then, you can randomly draw a card of Fate, Novice. The voice in his mind gradually woke Han Dong up. He was no longer in the dark and damp plague cellar. Han Dong was now in a clean and tidy white space. It was a pentagon structure, and the center of each wall corresponded to a unique door. The first door was made of metal, with a sword and shield engraved on it. The shield had a clear cross symbol on it. The sign on the door read, Crusader, Crusader. The second door was made of mud, with 3 books engraved on it, corresponding to magic, holy, and a strange language that Han Dong did not recognize. The sign on the door read, Library, Library. The third door was made of animal skin, with a palm engraved on it, and a circular mark was engraved on the palm. The sign on the door read, Control, Control. The fourth door was made of brass, with a large and small intricate gear engraved on it. The sign on the door read, Machinery, Machinery. The fifth door was made of ebony, with a pentagram and a crystal ball engraved on it. The sign on the door read, Mysticism, Mysticism. Han Dong did not get excited because of the evil spirit incident. He immediately put himself in the reward-receiving stage, adapting and observing in front of him. At the same time, he also contacted Chun-Li through his mind. Chun-Li was currently resting in the prison, and everything was normal. Allocate Fate Points and determine my main profession. The reason why the knights in Holy City, Nunthanar, were different from normal people was because of the supernatural abilities they obtained from the Fate realm. From my current understanding of the current world, if I major in machinery, it should be easy to survive in the future, right? After all, it was the age of steam machines, and most of the facilities in the city were related to copper machinery. However, I need to find a suitable profession for myself. Han Dong was a researcher when he was alive. He first stood in front of the mud door called Library. Once he chose this door, Han Dong guessed that he would most likely be able to control the magic ability. Moreover, Han Dong had a good impression of magic since he was young. He believed that with his research and reading ability, he would be able to quickly study all kinds of magic books and quickly get started. At this moment, a strange feeling appeared in Han Dong's head, driving him to turn his head towards the fifth door. Chapter 26. Mysticism, Mysticism, Intuition. As a researcher, he needed to conduct rigorous scientific analysis of various phenomena, combining experimental phenomena with basic theoretical support to come up with a conclusion. However, the seemingly illusory feeling of intuition was equally important, especially when taking on a brand new topic where there was little research in the world and no suitable entry point could be found. Intuition was needed to open up the first path. In Han Dong's view, intuition was not born out of thin air. Instead, it was a result of a quick non-ideological calculation based on all the information collected by the brain, including the fragmented memories of the subconscious level. Usually, the smarter a person was, the more experience and knowledge they had in their life, the more accurate their intuition would be. When he looked at the fifth door, Han Dong followed his intuition and slowly approached it. Western mysticism. In my original world, with the publication of Copernicus's theory of the celestial bodies and the introduction of the blood circulation theory, this subject came to an end in the mainstream world. But in the current world with magical elements and various supernatural abilities, mysticism naturally exists. Ancient mystic scholars were often generalists in mathematics, alchemy, religious theory, herbal medicine, astrology, and magic charms. They were the scientists of that era. Indeed, as someone who specializes in cell biology, mysticism might be more suitable for me. Moreover, the head I picked up from the prison might not be able to be explained from the perspective of magic. Perhaps the answer can only be found from mysticism. At the same time, Han Dong took out the destiny item he obtained from this incident, the Plague Doctor's dagger. To fully utilize the true ability of this item, I also need to specialize in mysticism. Coincidence? Or was it predestined? There was no time limit to the distribution of destiny points. Han Dong gave himself half an hour to consider and finally decided to open the ebony door that symbolized mysticism. The interior was not a bizarre room filled with all kinds of arcane objects as Han Dong had imagined. Instead, it was a small, dark, and sealed compartment. A bronze chair with various sophisticated instruments, syringes, catheters, metal headgear, was set up in the center of the room. It seemed like the only option was to sit on it. You have 2 destiny points remaining. Do you wish to use them all? Note, at least 5 destiny points will be used to perfect your main profession, and subsequent branch talent trees will appear. Before reaching 5 fate points, it is recommended that you invest all of your fate points into it. Since that was the case, what choice did Han Dong have? Based on the information he had gathered so far, the journey of fate had just begun. Although Han Dong had completed his first mission in a near-perfect manner, there was still a long way to go in the future. At the very least, before deciding his class, Han Dong would still be considered a noob, but his position would definitely be higher than those who had not yet entered the Destiny realm. Phew! He took a deep breath. Choose to allocate points. Ka. The sealing device on the bronze chair immediately locked Han Dong's entire body. More than 10 syringes were accurately inserted into Han Dong's blood vessels through a catheter. At the same time, a special syringe was inserted into the back of his neck. Pain was inevitable. For Han Dong, who had been tortured by the cancer demon, he was still able to withstand it. With the injection of an unknown solvent, Han Dong could clearly feel that his body was changing. To be precise, it was his head that was changing. About half an hour passed. The injection process was over. Han Dong's weak body did not change at all. Only squeak, the sound of something soft being squeezed. A speckled tentacle appeared in the palm of his hand. This was Han Dong's subjective action. This time, using the tentacle did not make him feel weak. Instead, he felt that he could freely retract it. It was very obvious. After investing 2 fate points into mysticism, Han Dong's control over the faceless head became even more proficient. His entire brain felt refreshed like never before. He could even faintly feel that there was a strange energy in his brain that he could control, but Han Dong still could not find a way to use this energy. It was very clear that Han Dong's intuition and choice were correct. Mysticism was related to this faceless head. If this goes on, will I be able to upgrade the faceless head? Once the prison is upgraded, it will be able to accommodate even more special life forms. The usually reserved Han Dong also showed an excited smile at this moment. Not only was he excited because he obtained an inhuman power, but he also found a way to upgrade the head. Once the prison was expanded, it would be able to accommodate other special life forms. This would all become Han Dong's personal strength. At this moment, a notification came from the Destiny realm. Frowny face fate points have been allocated. You have become a mysticism apprentice. If you continue to allocate 3 points to your main profession, your foundation will be completely stabilized and the mysticism talent tree will be unlocked. The next time you enter the Destiny realm, it is recommended that you form a team with the same rank, apprentice who has yet to unlock the talent tree. Mysticism apprentice. After returning to the Holy City, I hope that a relevant organization will accept me and learn how to use mysticism. Before I completely understand the origin of the faceless head, I must not use it in front of others. Just as Han Dong was immersed in joy, the iron chair in the room turned into a crystal round table. When? Han Dong did not notice this change at all. Please choose a card of fate, novice. When a card is revealed, the corresponding reward will be given. That's right. Han Dong broke out of his excitement and remembered that he still had a reward that he had not received. Originally, there was only a low probability of obtaining a card of fate. After completing the side quest, the probability increased by 10%, but it was still not high. Unexpectedly, it really appeared when the reward was given. Luck was also a part of strength. On the crystal round table, there were 4 golden cards with identical backs, placed at equal intervals. I'll just randomly pick one. Cheating in this kind of place is just asking for death. Han Dong habitually picked the card on his left. When he touched the card, the other 3 cards immediately disappeared. The card in Han Dong's hand had the image of the Holy Grail printed on it. Then, a miracle appeared. With a flash of golden light, the card disappeared, and in its place was a physical Holy Grail that was filled with clear liquid. Card of Fate, Holy Grail. After drinking, 1 basic ability will be strengthened. Detected that the user has not learned the basic ability of mysticism. The current consumption is ineffective. Holy Grail is a novice strengthening item. The host's tentacle, advanced, ability is ineffective. Note, the Holy Grail has a shelf life of 1 day. Please use it as soon as possible. This is a bit of a scam. Han Dong did not think that he could be recommended to join a mysticism organization in the Holy City and learn a basic ability in 1 day. Immediately changing his mind, Han Dong took the Holy Grail back to the prison area and handed it to the only anomaly in the prison, Chun-Li. Chapter 27. Chun-Li, who had been taken in by the prison, was Han Dong's permanent assistant. Giving Chun-Li this chance to be strengthened was equivalent to indirectly strengthening the prison and strengthening Han Dong's overall strength. After all, Chun-Li was in the brain prison and could be summoned at any time like a shadow. Chun-Li held the exquisite Holy Grail with both hands, somewhat puzzled. However, due to the special relationship between the two of them, she did not suspect Han Dong. To a certain extent, Han Dong was her master. Gulp, gulp. After drinking the liquid in the Holy Grail, it immediately took effect. A strong evil aura overflowed from Chun-Li's pores. Even her black hair was moved by this evil aura and fluttered in the air. Black veins spread all over Chun-Li's arms, and her bones creaked. A few minutes passed. When Chun-Li opened her eyes again, the fierceness in them was far stronger than before. Evil refinement successful. Anomaly possessed Chun-Li. Combat rating D-. Chun-Li, you've become stronger? Yes. Thank you. Chun-Li felt the changes in her body and was a little emotional. She wanted to go up and hug Han Dong, but she thought of something and stopped herself. You're welcome. There will be a lot of things that I need your help with in the future. That's all for now. When I return to the other world, I'll think of a way to get you some food and occasionally let you out to exercise. Okay. The two of them were not close, and Han Dong was the kind of person who did not know how to socialize. When their cooperation ended, he did not know what to say for a while. At this point, the newbie fate event had ended. Asterisk buzz. Asterisk tinnitus. When he opened his eyes again, Han Dong appeared in the familiar ceremony square. However, compared to the scene of thousands of people gathered a few days ago, only Han Dong had escaped. Because the time limit of each event was different returnees would appear at different times. Returnees. New returnees. The square was off limits. The surrounding ordinary citizens could only vaguely see Han Dong in the middle of the square. Before they could see Han Dong's appearance, a soft leather mask was directly placed on his head, hiding his face. Get on the horse. Han Dong looked up and saw that the person who put on the mask for him was a member of the Black Rose Knights. However, with Han Dong's thin and weak body, it was impossible for him to climb onto the horse's back, which was at the same height as him. His hand supported himself on the horse's back several times, but in the end, his feet never left the ground. Although the knight was wearing a mask, he was obviously impatient. He grabbed Han Dong's linen collar and easily put him on the horse's back. The half-modified metal horse galloped toward the depths of the holy city. Wherever the black and gold horse went, the pedestrians on the road would lower their heads slightly and stare at the rider with a look of admiration, and also at Han Dong with a look of envy. They knew that the young man escorted by the knight was a returnee who came out of the destiny realm alive. left the residential area. After the horses passed through an inner-city river and sentry posts, they arrived at an empty, open street. This was different from the narrow and dirty roads of the commoners. The open road was built with good quality marble embedded with cement. There was a kerosene street lamp every 50 meters on both sides of the road, and various patterns were engraved on the brass metal lampposts. On the right side of the road, there was an inner-city canal that was nearly 100 meters wide. There were several steam-powered ships sailing on the river. Most of them were responsible for the transportation of goods, and there was a huge emblem on the hull that symbolized the unit they belonged to. On the left side of the road, there was a dark stone wall about 8 meters high. Han Dong vaguely saw some kind of transparent, colorful lines on the surface of the stone wall occasionally. It seemed that it was difficult to get close to it. The length of the stone wall was the same as the road. There was no end in sight. Han Dong didn't ask about the destination he requested. After all, the result wouldn't change because of his inquiry. He just needed to follow the knight to the end. All of a sudden, the black horse stopped. The knight grabbed Han Dong, got off the horse, and stood in front of the stone wall. As the knight reached out to touch the stone wall in front of him, an incredible scene happened. The stone wall turned into an iron door when his palm touched it, and he didn't know where it led to. The knight looked at Han Dong through his goggles and signaled him to go in quickly. There was no way out, and there was no choice. They walked for more than 3,000 meters in the dark passage. This was nothing for Han Dong, who had been looking for corpses in his cell form for 7 years. He pushed open the similar iron door at the end. He stepped into an open and warm room. The fireplace's flames dispelled the chill in Han Dong's body. There were various metal decorations hanging on the surrounding walls, and there was a long black wooden table with brass edges in front of it. There were 3 elders with different appearances and clothes sitting inside the room. They were examining the weak and sickly young man with different gazes. One of them was a knight, but unlike the Black Rose Knights, he wore a bright white light armor. He did not wear any mask. The handsome Caucasian face and elegant long golden hair gave Han Dong the first impression of the iconic Knights Templar of the West. This handsome knight was the youngest of the 3, but from his appearance, he looked no more than 40 years old. Sitting in the middle of the 3 was a red-robed mage holding a metal staff. However, his body size was even larger than the knight beside him. The muscles under the robe were well-trained, and, at the same time, he had a thick beard. It was like a character in a game who chose the barbarian race with the advantage of strength, but mistakenly pointed out the talent of a mage. Han Dong estimated that the power of this person's physical magic might be stronger than elemental magic. The third was a middle-aged woman wearing a saint's costume. Red stripes ran through the white. Such a costume and color symbolized her high status. At the same time, she also had a pair of pale eyes as clear as water, giving people a sense of approachability and comfort. Among the 3, this woman seemed to be the easiest to talk to. This is the first time I've seen a Ritterni with such poor physical fitness. But I still have to congratulate you, Warren Nicholas. It's very good to be promoted from the civilian district. After the bearded mage's evaluation, he took the initiative to ask, explain in detail the destiny event that you cleared, including the type, difficulty, requirements, and the final reward you received. Don't worry about the time. The more detailed you are, the easier it will be for us. You can also obtain the most accurate trainee evaluation. Can I ask, what is this about? Han Dong needed to understand the current situation and the other party's purpose before giving an appropriate answer. All returnees will undergo a basic question and answer session. After recording your relevant experience, we will give you the title of Trainee Knight according to your situation. Go to the National Royal Knight Academy for professional learning. Prepare for the next trip to the Destiny Realm. Sacrifice everything for the survival of the human race. Chapter 28. National Royal Knight Academy. This kind of name made Han Dong happy. This was exactly what he wanted. With this system, any organization in the Destiny Realm would be able to directly understand and learn about mysticism from the inside, and it would save them a lot of trouble. Since this was the case, Han Dong also began to selectively answer the questions. Evil Spirit 4-star difficulty when the requirement of survive for 3 days was mentioned. The 3 interviewers in front of him showed a more or less shocked expression. They didn't understand how Han Dong, with his physical fitness, could survive such a difficult newbie event. At first, they all thought that Han Dong passed a 1 or 2-star difficulty event. Explain in detail the process of your clearance, and explain some of the key turning points. Okay, when Han Dong talked about the event, he first weakened Edward and reduced the meaning of his existence. The key to survival was the interaction with the event character. He emphasized that it was because of the appropriate communication between him and the event character that triggered the side event. To get closer to the event character, and with their help, he smoothly cleared the event. Roping in the event character indeed. This was a great trick for a newbie to pass the first Destiny realm, but it was limited to events under 2 stars. Monsters in 4 stars difficulty could easily kill the event character. Han Dong then talked about his inference and plan. This simplified Edward's interference, and at the same time omitted any matter related to the faceless head. Instead, the focus was shifted to the fire plan. He emphasized that he perfectly cooperated with the event character, and at the last moment, trapped the fire-fearing evil spirit in the fire trap, and persisted until the end of the time limit. As for killing the evil spirit, it was naturally omitted. Han Dong was a weak guy without any background. If he said it, these people would surely guess that Han Dong had some unspeakable secret. If the matter of the faceless head was accidentally leaked, then it would be troublesome. The event was finished. First, the handsome knight gave an evaluation. The event character has a certain demonic ability. It is because of this that he was able to block the evil spirit many times. Considering the time limit and the fire-fearing characteristic of the evil spirit, he increased the intimacy with the event character and used a precise plan to escape. Not bad, very talented. After that, he gave him a good rating of 80 points in his review form. The female interviewer who emitted a holy radiance smiled and nodded, giving a rating of 73 points. As for the bearded mage in charge, he stared into Han Dong's eyes. Young man, you're very good at lying. If I'm not wrong, you should have made full use of the death of your teammate to buy yourself enough time to be safe, right? Your explanation seems perfect, but there is actually a small loophole. That was the problem of difficulty. According to what you said, I should be able to barely survive a 3-star Destiny event, but in a 4-star Destiny event, I will still die. But everyone has their own secrets, so I won't ask in detail here. Overall, it's not bad. The bearded sorcerer gave a rating of 71 points. Although Han Dong didn't know if the score was high or low, it shouldn't be too bad since it was above the passing mark. Would you like to receive a card of fate? No. He couldn't talk about the cards of fate either. After all, Han Dong used the reward of the cards to strengthen Han Li and not himself. Once this was revealed, the prison incident would also be exposed. The bearded sorcerer couldn't help but sigh. What a pity. A 4-star evil spirit event only gives 1 fate point. Tell me your choice of major. This will determine your teaching arrangements in the academy. Mysticism. For a moment, the 3 of them were disappointed. Of course, this was related to the major of the 3. In their eyes, Han Dong was considered a talented young man among this batch of returnees, but unfortunately, his major had nothing to do with them. What a pity. If you chose library, I can still give you special treatment. The bearded sorcerer waved his hand, and a wave of heat hit him. The sparks dissipated. A metal card that was still emitting heat fell into Han Dong's hand. On the front of the card was a knight's emblem of 2 swords crossed over a horse's head, and on the back was a picture of the sun and the moon intertwined. This is the apprentice knight's identity card. After 3 days, take this card and report to the academy. Okay. Han Dong went back the way he came. The Black Rose Knight, who had carried him, was still waiting for him. But this time the knight spoke. A magnetic male voice came from under the mask. Welcome to the National Royal Knight Academy. Where do you live? It seemed that if he didn't pass the interview, he wouldn't be able to go back the way he came. After knowing that Han Dong passed the interview, the knight planned to send him home. But this question was a little difficult. It could be said that it was the most difficult question Han Dong had ever encountered. After all, after Han Dong took over the body of the young man named Nicholas, he didn't go home at all. As soon as he walked on the street, he was found by his sister, and because of the lack of time, he went directly to the ceremony square. I'll have to trouble you, Sir Knight, to send me to somewhere near the ceremony square. My little sister should still be waiting for me there. Han Dong used all his strength to climb onto the horse's back this time. During the return journey, the knight's attitude changed compared to before, and he took the initiative to speak. It's hard to imagine that you can pass the newbie event with your physical fitness. Pardon me for asking, is the difficulty 1 or 2 stars? 4-star event. Han Dong guessed that these knights were under the management of a huge organization. He had already told the knight about the 4-star evil spirit during the interview, so there was no need to hide it. The black warhorse stopped abruptly. The knight immediately turned his head and took off his black iron mask. Black hedgehog's short hair, brown eyes, white skin, and a high-nose bridge gave off the feeling of a mix of Chinese and Western blood compared to the blonde knight leader. This Black Rose Knight was younger. He was about 27 years old, and his eyes were filled with determination. My name is Barton Foggs. I graduated from a Knight Academy last year, and I'm currently part of the Black Rose Knights. Since you can pass the 4-star newbie event, as long as you don't die, your future development will definitely not be bad. If you're interested, you can consider joining the Black Rose Knights after graduation. My name is Warren Nicholas. Okay. Han Dong was flattered and quickly introduced himself. Judging from a knight's reaction, passing the 4-star newbie event should be a very impressive thing. Soon, they arrived at the ceremony square. After dismounting, Han Dong quickly found Nina sitting on a bench in the area outside the square. He didn't expect that this sister of his would really come to the square every day to wait for him to come back. Chapter 29. 30 minutes after the meeting with Nina. Nina, who looked like a mechanical apprentice, finally calmed down. She never thought that her brother would survive. On the way home, Nina finally asked the question she had been hiding for a long time. You are my brother, right? In fact, before Han Dong entered the Destiny Realm, Nina had said something similar. How can you tell? Brother Warren is completely different from you. He's lazy and rascal. He doesn't look like a brother at all. He doesn't want to do anything and stays at home all day doing nothing. When he was forced to enter the Destiny Realm and put on the clockwork device, he had completely given up hope. In the morning when the Destiny Realm was about to open, he ran out of the house alone. I thought he was too scared and committed suicide in advance. He did commit suicide. I happened to see it, so it became like this. After careful consideration, Han Dong decided to come clean with him. From what Nina said, she didn't like Warren Nicholas at all. She even looked down on such a brother. Han Dong was now a returnee, so Nina would never do anything to harm Han Dong. She would most likely accept all of this. Suicide? You are? Don't worry, I'm also human. Since I've accepted your brother's body, I'm also a member of your family. A hint of worry flashed in Nina's eyes. After a while, she nodded slightly. Actually, this is good. At least, Mom won't have to worry about brother anymore. Thank you. I'll keep anything about you a secret. Okay. As long as Nina was willing to trust him completely, the possibility of his identity being exposed would be minimized. At this moment, Nina, who had short brown hair and goggles, took the initiative to hold Han Dong's hand from the side and said with a smile, Brother, let's go home. Mom definitely didn't expect you to come back alive. Han Dong, an old man who spent most of his life in the laboratory, trembled slightly when the young girl held his hand. Well, by the way, does my identity as a returnee help your family? Of course, at the very least, I won't be forced into the Destiny Realm. I'll have plenty of time to prepare. In addition, once you continue your studies in the Knight Academy, the school will allocate a special school district house on the other side of the Moslabi River. Mother and I will be able to move away from the commoner district and live a carefree life. At this point, Nina snickered to herself. She was overjoyed. Yes, How about this later at night? Come to my room. I have many things to ask you. An inn, no problem. I can be considered half a mechanical apprentice, and I know a lot of information from Master that ordinary civilians don't know. Just like that, Han Dong, who had settled the issue of his identity, followed Nina back to a densely packed building in the civilian area. It was as dense and chaotic as the fragrant Nine Dragons walled city. Nina had walked through the dark, snake-shaped alleys that only allowed one person to pass at a time. After passing through many branches, she finally found a damp, dark corridor that went upstairs. The 7th floor. It was a simple room with 2 bedrooms and a living room. Since there was no sunlight coming in from all sides, the room relied on a few small kerosene lamps for illumination. Unlike the city of steam machines that looked like it from the outside, in this commoner's house of the lowest class, metal was extremely rare and most of the furniture was made of wood. Then the door opened. A slightly stooped mother with brown hair mixed with some white hair walked out. She was different from the plump Western woman in Han Dong's impression. Nicholas' mother gave people the impression that she was prematurely old and skinny. It was difficult for this family to even have enough food and clothing. Only Nina's body was slightly better. Oh my God, Warren, is there something wrong with my eyes? You're still alive? Although it was a little strange to hear such words from his birth mother, no one would believe that a weak and sickly prodigal like Nicholas could come back alive. Han Dong just nodded slightly and responded, "Well, Mother, we can move out of here soon. I'm very tired today, so I'll go back to my room and rest first." "Quickly rest. Dinner is ready. Let Nina bring it in for you." Han Dong was not used to seeing his mother crying with joy and looking at him with concern. He lowered his head and quickly walked back to his room. When he shouted the word "mother" just now, there was a slight fluctuation in Han Dong's heart. After all, Han Dong was an orphan since childhood and had never come into contact with the word parents. Let's leave the family problem alone for now. Since I'm honest with Nina, the problem of identity leakage can be minimized. Moreover, from the country's compulsory requirement for young people to enter the Destiny realm and the urgent need for talents, as a returnee, even if people know that I'm an outsider who took over Nicola's body, it shouldn't be a big problem. What this country needs is talents. As long as the position of the talents is completely inclined to the holy city, they should accept it. Of course, it's best if I don't expose my identity. Han Dong lay on the comfortable wooden bed, preparing for a big event. Since he just returned from the Destiny realm, Nina and his mother would not disturb him. Activate the faceless head. Han Dong appeared in the prison area. However, this time, he did not come to see Miss Chun-Li. Opening the door of the sterile laboratory, Han Dong's purpose this time was to examine the collected cell essence. Sure enough, the injection placed on the central platform had preserved the cell essence collected by Han Dong from the corpse of the special life form in this incident. Taking out the syringe, he came to the clean workbench. Even though Han Dong had done countless cell inoculation experiments on such a workbench during his lifetime, he was still nervous. He was worried that the cell cluster, which symbolized his body, would be damaged due to improper operation. Everything is difficult at the beginning. As long as I can succeed once, it will be fine. Han Dong stared at the cluster of cells on the operating table with his 100-fold focus. If the cell cluster had any discomfort during the injection, he would stop. However, things were simpler than Han Dong imagined. Just as the syringe approached the cell cluster, the plasma membrane opened a hole through the contraction, just enough for the needle to be inserted. Injection. Slowly pushing the needle pump, the essence was injected into the cell cluster little by little. When the injection was completed, a prompt sounded. Frowny face, all the cell essence has been injected. The load limit has increased by 25 points. 5 points from the plague sample, 20 points from the vengeful spirit sample. 5 plague monsters are only 5 points. 1 vengeful spirit is 20 points. Han Dong was surprised. The load limit has really increased. In this way, he could find a new body or body part and slowly repair or replace this weak body. Let's start with Han. Chapter 30. Han Dong was really tired after entering the Destiny realm. After injecting the cell essence, Han Dong lay on Nicholas's wooden bed. He felt like he would close his eyes at any time. However, before he closed his eyes, Han Dong called his sister, Nina, and he instructed her to do something. Nina patted her chest and said confidently, "Don't worry, leave it to me. When I was an apprentice, I often went to the waste disposal station to get books. As long as it's related to occultism, right?" "Yes, the older the better." Han Dong asked Nina to help him find books. Apart from reading them himself, he also had another purpose. After instructing her, Han Dong fell asleep. When he woke up, it was already dark. The wind-up clock at the bedside pointed to 8 o'clock. The stopwatch moved at the same speed as in his previous world. The day was also 24 hours. He was a little hungry and was about to go out to eat something. Unexpectedly, Nina, who had changed into a floral dress, was waiting at the door with a sumptuous dinner. The dishes included a small roast chicken. It should be known that in such a poor family, it would cost a lot of money to take out a roast chicken. At the same time, there were a lot of old books piled up on both sides of the door of Han Dong's room. He had to admit that Nina was really efficient. "Mom specially made it for you. I guess that you would be hungry when you woke up." "Brother, in such a dangerous environment in the Destiny realm, you basically can't eat anything, right? Hurry up and eat it." "I'm not hungry." Nina, who was holding the roast chicken, deliberately emphasized the word "not hungry," but in fact, she was drooling. Although Han Dong really wanted to take the roast chicken for himself, considering that Nina could help him understand the world and that she was his sister, he still gave her a drumstick. At the same time, he reminded her, "Don't worry. Come to my room later." "Okay." Nina, who took the drumstick, was very happy. Han Dong felt that his words were ambiguous and immediately corrected himself. "Come to my room just to ask you some information about the holy city and this world." "Okay." Han Dong took the dinner and locked the door. He put the roast chicken, vegetable salad, and carrot soup on a relatively clean wooden table for the time being. It was accompanied by a burst of evil chi. The bewitched Chun-Li, who was dressed in red and had her face covered by black hair, was released. When Chun-Li appeared, the flame in the kerosene lamp flickered slightly. "Miss Chun-Li, you don't have to deliberately scare people. Just be normal." "Oh, all right." Chun-Li took out a rubber band from somewhere and quickly tied her black hair behind her head. Then, she withdrew her evil aura into her body. Her style changed, and she became an ordinary big sister in red. "Let's eat something." Chun-Li also belonged to the category of humans. In order to help Han Dong, she had not eaten for more than a day. In the face of the fragrant roast chicken, she could not help but eat in big mouthfuls. Not long after, the two of them cleaned out the sumptuous dinner. "Are you full?" "I'm full." Chun-Li nodded slightly. "After some time, your living conditions should improve. At the very least, you won't have to go hungry." "I'm fine." After Chun-Li walked around the small room twice, she said, "I want to go back. Call me if there's any danger or if you need help." "Okay." Apart from the prison, which was her home, she was still not used to the environment in the holy city. She preferred to stay in prison. This was the first time the two of them met in the outside world. There was a sense of awkwardness in their conversation. Both of them were introverted people. It might be better when they got to know each other better. Han Dong muttered in a low voice, "Miss Chun-Li seems to have high growth potential. If we continue to train her, she will continue to grow. When the time comes, I'll get her some books in prison. Otherwise, it will be too boring for her to be alone." Then, it was time for the important interrogation. Han Dong called Nina into the bedroom and cut to the chase. Han Dong found a pen that was barely usable in his room and prepared to record the important information that he was about to receive. When Nina, who was wearing a floral dress, entered the room, she did not feel unfamiliar with Han Dong at all. She widened her ocean blue eyes and took the initiative to sit next to Han Dong. "Brother, what do you want to know first? Is your world like this?" Han Dong drew a rough map of the world in his notebook. The map of Europe was particularly detailed. "What's this?" Nina was puzzled. "A world map." Nina looked aggrieved, as if she could not answer Han Dong's first question. A world map. I really don't know. I was born in the holy city and have never left. I just heard from my master that the outside world is extremely vast, but we have no chance or ability to see the outside world. Well, tell me what you know about the world. What's in the outside world? Why do human beings live in a big metal city? I also heard from my master that about 200 years ago, a species more advanced than human beings was born. In a few days, the total number of human beings in the world plummeted by more than 80%. That's scary. The rest of the human beings all hid. That's about it. 200 years ago, a species more advanced than human beings was born? At that time, what era were human beings in? They should have firearms, right? I don't know. Nina giggled awkwardly. Han Dong guessed they should have the most basic artillery, but 80% of them died in a few days. I think only some advanced countries survived. By the way, are the advanced creatures in the outside world afraid of copper? That's right. It's because someone discovered that the holy city was built in such a way, and people can live in peace. Copper. No wonder human technology has been stuck at brass, steam, and gears for such a long time. It turns out that copper has such a function. So, if I'm not wrong, the most basic currency in the holy city is copper coins, right? Copper has replaced the position of gold and silver, right? Yes, that's right. Han Dong continued to ask, what about the source of copper? There should be a lot of copper mines under the holy city, right? I know that. My master said that the holy city was indeed built on a huge natural mine, but after a lot of mining over the years, the copper mine was basically exhausted 50 years ago. Now, the only source is the Destiny Realm. The cost of mining outside the city is too high, so it's basically impossible. Well, Han Dong recorded this important piece of information down. He began to ask about the Destiny Realm. Han Dong had his own guesses, and he hoped to get an answer here. Tell me about the Destiny Realm in detail. Okay. I knew that brother would ask about this, so I specially went to my master's house. This is a book about the Destiny Realm in my master's house. It was written by a noble author, and it explained the origin of the Destiny Realm in detail. Brother, after you finish reading it, remember to give it to me. I must return it tomorrow morning before my master finds out. No problem. Han Dong stared at the book titled Origin of Destiny, The Light of Hope for Human Survival, and smiled. Nina was more capable than he thought, and her master should be a mechanical craftsman with a high status. The first sentence of the book's introduction made Han Dong completely immersed in it. When I understood destiny, the feeling of despair that hovered in my mind disappeared, because I understood that humanity has not been abandoned. When he saw the time when the first page of the Destiny Realm appeared, Han Dong nodded slightly. Sure enough, the Destiny Realm and higher life forms appeared at almost the same time. Chapter 31. The first chapter of the book. It recorded the discovery of the Destiny space and the events related to the initial exploration. There was also a description of the world. Han Dong learned that the world after his rebirth was also the Earth. The 5 continents and the distribution of the world's countries were exactly the same. And 200 years before the discovery of the higher life forms, it happened to be the time when the war broke out. Humans were basically equipped with firearms, but such firearms were simply unable to resist the higher life forms that would go crazy with just one look. The following was the original text. When the expedition team confirmed the existence of higher life forms than humans and began to attack humans, the capitals of the world at the same time opened a kind of space portal to an unknown domain. Our technological level is still unable to analyze this kind of portal, and we can't even understand the meaning of the portal's existence. I can only use words to describe its basic form. It has a golden edge, an oval structure like the stars in the night sky, like a stargate that blends multiple dimensions. The description of the Destiny space in the text was not consistent with Han Dong's experience. Han Dong was standing in the ceremony square at the time, but he didn't see any portal at all and fell into the ground with thousands of people. Han Dong continued to read. The portal of the destiny space will automatically close when it comes in contact with the almighty life form. It only allows humans to enter. It is a door that God opened for humans. In the beginning, when the global war broke out, a large number of volunteers from all over the world took the initiative to enter the destiny space, but almost no one returned. The first returnee appeared in Kyushu. There was a sergeant from the kingdom of 9 continents. After returning from the infinite space, he had obtained a certain degree of body strengthening. His physical fitness had doubled, and the hardness of his fists had greatly increased. He could not find a match for him among the humans. From his mouth, for the first time, he spoke about the destiny points and related major professions. Then, returnees began to appear in countries all over the world, each with different abilities, and became the main force to resist the higher life forms. But it was still difficult to resist. When he saw Kyushu, Han Dong's heart trembled. Since Kyushu had a returnee for the first time, to a large extent, it meant that in addition to the holy city in Europe, there may be similar cities built in Asia. He continued to read. On the next page, he saw the current state of the world. According to incomplete statistics, before the humans discovered that the high-purity brass metal could cause higher life forms to have a sense of rejection, thus resisting the crazy invasion of higher life forms and building a metal city-state that could accommodate enough humans. Only 1% of the humans survived. At that time, the total population of the world was at its lowest point, with less than 100 million survivors. If they had not discovered the characteristics of the brass in time, it was very likely that the human race would have been wiped out. At present, there were only 3 known national city-states in the world. Holy City, Nun-Thena, Eternal City, Coordinates, Italos. Dragon City, Imperial Capital. Coordinates, 9 states. Wangdu Megalanri, City of Machinery. Coordinates, Sam. The 3 cities had a common characteristic, and that was that they were all built on a large copper mine, and they were all centered in the destiny space. Is this the world pattern? Now that I think about it, the world I lived in was really peaceful. Indeed, humans aren't perfect. We're just the first type of intelligent life form that can think and reason. Many biologists have predicted that it's entirely possible for a higher level life form to appear on Earth, one that can adapt to the ecosystem. It's just a matter of time. This parallel world obviously encountered this situation in advance. When the apocalypse came, the Destiny Space's strengthening channel became the only flame of hope for mankind. However, the true origin of the Destiny Space was not explained clearly. This book is very subjective, and the definition of the Destiny Space is based on the author's own subjective speculation. There's no actual evidence, so it's not very useful for reference. The book also mentioned the 5 basic career choices, but for Han Dong, who had already become a returnee, this was nothing new. Han Dong already had a basic understanding of the world's framework, but he still needed to understand the higher life forms in depth. At the same time, he also needed to know the Holy City's management style, class division, and economic system. I should be able to know these details when I go to the National Royal Knight Academy. As for going out of the city to take a look, I'm afraid I'll have to allocate more than 5 destiny points and become a real knight. Only then can I follow the knights out of the city and officially come into contact with the higher life forms. When Han Dong closed the book, he found that Nina was still staring at him with her eyes wide open. Finished reading? Yes. Return it to your master. Thank you. Hee. What are you thanking me for? I still need to thank you, big brother. When you enter the school in a few days, Mom and I will be able to move out of here. As she spoke, Nina leaned forward and kissed Han Dong on the side of his face. Nina suddenly remembered that the person in front of her was not her brother, and for a moment, she was a little embarrassed and blushed. I'm sorry. It's okay. There's one more thing I want to ask you. Nina, are you a mechanical apprentice? Yes, although I'm only a beginner apprentice. I can eat free lunch on weekdays, but I can't take it back. When I become an adult, I can officially become an official apprentice. When he heard this, Han Dong could not help but relate to Akuman's experience. Han Dong reminded her seriously, "If you need any help, remember to tell me." Hee hee, Master is very good to me. Big brother, you don't have to worry. When my skills are better, I'll be able to make some steam parts myself, and then I'll be able to greatly increase my survival rate in the Destiny space. Okay. Suddenly, Nina moved her body and deliberately approached Han Dong. Big brother, what did you do before? Teaching biology. Biology? Wow, that sounds so high-end. Your scientific research here has not been able to develop normally for 200 years due to various reasons. It's normal that you haven't heard of biology. You should have heard of chemistry, right? Chemistry? Big brother, are you talking about alchemy? Alchemy. Han Dong knew very well that alchemy was part of ancient chemistry to a certain extent. It was mixed with some unrealistic ideas, such as the Philosopher's Stone. However, in this world with magic and esper abilities, alchemy might really be an extremely important branch of science. The status of alchemists is one level higher than us mechanics. They're the think tank in the holy city. Han Dong wrote down the word alchemy in his notebook. Han Dong did not want to lose his old profession. While he was going deep into the Destiny space, he also wanted to join the scientific circle of this world and do some side business. After all, Han Dong did not have a direct source of income yet. If Big Brother is really interested, you can go to the academy and ask. If Big Brother becomes an alchemist, I'll be able to eat roast chicken every day. Yes, I can consider it. Chapter 32. Higher Life Forms. Destiny Realm. Mechanical City. Alchemy. And the next step of obtaining limbs, mysticism exploration, and so on. Lying in bed, Han Dong's mind was filled with these thoughts. Unknowingly, several hours passed, and he only fell asleep around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. As a researcher, he was very fond of, and could even be said to be obsessed with, new things. After understanding the general pattern of the world, he couldn't wait to go to the Night Academy to learn more about things and new things that he couldn't touch in the original world. Because he slept too late, he didn't know when he slept until he was awakened by the quarrel outside the door. What's so noisy? Han Dong stretched his body and eavesdropped on the bedroom door. He heard a few keywords: compulsory conscription and tax collection. Compulsory conscription should be forcing young people to enter the Destiny realm through a large number of people in exchange for a small number of returnees. Yesterday, Nina just said that because I became a returnee, she could avoid the compulsory conscription. It seems that the people in the civilian area are not well informed. Han Dong opened the door and went out. He saw 2 security officers wearing dark linen suits with 5-pointed star badges on their chests. They were asking Nina to put on a clockwork device for countdown. What are you doing? Hearing Han Dong's voice, the 2 men, one fat and one tall, looked at Han Dong doubtfully. They stared at Han Dong's skinny body. The fatter man immediately burst into laughter. Haha, you're a returnee? How can you survive in the Destiny realm with this kind of physical fitness? Stop joking. The other thin and tall man's eyes were sharp and saw the clockwork device on Han Dong's wrist at a glance. Huh, wearing a time device. You dare to disobey the order of the council and didn't participate in the last Destiny realm. In their view, the elites who could become returnees generally didn't come from the civilian area, let alone a young man who lived in such a poor environment due to malnutrition. Therefore, Han Dong's clockwork device was immediately regarded as a fugitive who was afraid of death and didn't want to participate in the Destiny realm. According to the charter set by the Parliament, those who escaped would be deprived of their rights for life, sold as slaves, used as human bait for the knights, or executed directly. The 2 of them pushed Nina and her mother aside and took out a simple iron bracelet, intending to tie Han Dong up and take him away. Let go of my brother. Nina tried her best to stop him. You're so annoying. One of them lost his patience and was about to slap Nina. In an instant, a gaze filled with killing intent was cast over. Han Dong stretched out his bamboo-like arm and stopped the security officer's action. Even though Han Dong's strength was pitifully small, he had a powerful will that originated from his brain. Through their eyes and the contact of their palms, it was transmitted into the other party's body, causing the security officer to stop in fear. Nina, stay with Mom at home. I'll go with them and come back soon. Han Dong smiled as if nothing had happened, just like when he had entered the Destiny realm. This made Nina, who was on the verge of tears, calm down and support her mother to lean on the side. Another fat public security officer sneered. You still want to come back? This isn't just your problem. Once you're convicted of escaping, they'll be guilty of covering up for you. Your sister will probably be sold as a slave, right? Unfortunately, her skin color isn't very good, so she probably won't be able to sell for much money. Haha. Charles, why are you talking so much? Bring this kid back, and we'll get a generous bonus. The tall and thin public security officer easily broke free from Han Dong's grasp. He didn't take the moment of fear seriously and quickly locked Han Dong's hands with iron chains. Yeah, let's go to Mona's Tavern tonight. I heard there's new stock there. The more they talked, the more excited they became. They grabbed Han Dong and walked to the local police station. During the escort, a voice full of evil resentment echoed in Han Dong's mind. Do you want to kill them? No, I did it on purpose. It's a good opportunity to learn about the local public security management policy. Miss Chinli, just have a good rest. I'll call you if there's any danger. Han Dong felt warm in his heart. He didn't expect Chun-Li to be so concerned about his situation. During the escort, the tall and thin public security officer who was stopped by Han Dong turned his head from time to time. He felt that Han Dong was a little strange, but they didn't receive any notice from the higher-ups. Generally, if there were returnees in the street area, the higher-ups would issue a notice and put the returnees and their families on a special list for special treatment. Samay Street Public Security Sub-Bureau. When the public security officer has something to do, you have to be careful in the cell with your body. Don't die. Unlike ordinary detention centers, this public security sub-bureau's underground detention center wasn't divided into rooms. Instead, all the criminals were thrown together. It was just a simple separation of men and women. Although it wasn't fatal, there were many cases of detainees being carried out with serious injuries, especially those with serious injuries on their buttocks. With Han Dong's physical fitness, he was at the bottom of the list no matter where he went. As soon as he walked into the detention center, there was immediately a big brother who was interested in the brown-haired and thin Han Dong. In this way, the detention wouldn't be lonely for a few days. Inside the public security sub-bureau, the tall and thin public security officer said, Charles, where's the boss? Why isn't he back yet? I'm afraid that this kid's body isn't good. If something happens to him after being bombarded by a few burly men, we won't have a bonus. Don't worry, the guys below aren't idiots. They're just committing low-cost theft. It'll be different if someone dies. It'll be fine. I heard that the boss was summoned to the higher-ups early in the morning. He'll be back after he's done. This group of public security officers weren't capable people. They were just a group of ordinary people from a middle-class family. Due to a distant relative becoming a returnee, they benefited from their good physiques and passed the low-level public security officer exam to obtain a proper job. They had a stable income and weren't forced to be conscripted. In terms of courage, they were even more cowardly and weren't willing to come into contact with the Destiny realm. An hour later, the sound of horse hooves arrived at the entrance of the public security sub-bureau. A middle-aged man wearing a tall hat, a black trench coat, and a silver emblem on his chest walked in. Constable Dace, when we were searching the residences today, we found a fugitive locked up below. When the public security officer heard this, he was furious. He looked down on fugitives who dared to violate the highest charter set by the Parliament and didn't participate in the Destiny realm on time because of their cowardice. If it was any other time, he would have immediately gone to the detention center, beaten this person up, and sent him to the local court. But today's situation was a bit special. When the public security officer entered, he had a happy smile on his face. He was called up at the last minute because of one thing. There was a returnee in the civilian area he was in charge of. Chapter 33. There's a returnee in the Samar civilian district, and his interview results are pretty good. He's already qualified to enter the academy. For a moment, dozens of people in the police station were engaged in a heated discussion. After all, the Samar civilian district was at the bottom of the 4 civilian districts. In such a poor and stinky environment where one could not get a normal education, there was actually a returnee and a trainee knight who passed the interview to enter the National Royal Knight Academy. This was a big deal. It seemed like nothing like this had happened in the past few years. Of course, just as everyone was discussing, the 2 staff members who had just captured Han Dong felt their hearts tighten. The taller person asked timidly, "Charles, could it be that we caught him?" "Impossible. That guy's arms are as thin as a stick. There's no pressure at all when escorting him. How can such a person be a trainee knight?" "That's right. If such a person can become a trainee knight, we could do it too." While the 2 of them comforted each other, they also asked their companions for information. A few days ago, the security officer in charge of the festival square started to talk about the unusual things about returnees. I remember that a returnee appeared in the center of the square yesterday afternoon. He was immediately taken to the interview by the Black Rose Knight. Although he was very far away, this person looked very mighty. His back was so huge. Yes. I also heard that the returnee who appeared yesterday afternoon was not simple from afar. Maybe he's a commoner genius with monstrous strength. Hearing such a description, Fatty Charles and Tall Brown swept away the worry in their hearts. Such an image did not match the young man they had caught at all. After Sheriff Davis rested for a while, he said, "I'll personally take care of him. I'll personally bring this Warren Nicholas to the station and do the relevant registration and file transfer. As for the escapee you caught, we'll talk about it later." Okay, they had not asked for Han Dong's name, so they did not know his name at all. The fact that the sheriff had come personally showed the status of a trainee knight in this civilian district. Sheriff Davis changed into casual clothes and went to Nicholas's room alone. After all, the returnees had to be kept confidential to a certain extent. If some people with bad intentions were to know about this, it might put the injured and weak returnees in danger. Looking for the address registered in the file, he found Nicholas's house. What? Captured? When Des heard Nina, who opened the door, told him what had happened, he immediately thought of the fugitive mentioned by his subordinate. He was furious, but at the same time, he was sweating due to nervousness. If the returnees held grudges, it would be troublesome in the future. Des was able to become a sheriff not because of his family, but because he was also a returnee. However, he did not pass the interview because he only passed a 1-star fate event, and there was a certain amount of luck involved. Even so, it was enough for him to serve as a sheriff in the Samar Civilian District's Public Security Branch for more than 10 years. It's really unlucky. These idiots raised in captivity are not only incompetent, but also stupid enough to implicate the entire branch. From now on, we have to strictly select the public security personnel. I hope this friend Nicholas won't mind too much. Des secretly took out 5 copper coins and handed them to the little girl in front of him. At the same time, he bowed 90 degrees to apologize. "Sorry, it was a mistake at work. This is my personal apology. When the time comes, there will be another formal apology from the public security branch." Nina had never seen so much money in one go, and it was from the manager of the Samar Civilian District. She accepted the copper coins with a dumbfounded expression. Des bowed his head and apologized again before rushing back to the branch as quickly as possible. At this moment, the tall and fat duo in the branch were still laughing and talking about how to have fun that night. Just as Sheriff Des rushed back to the branch and was about to cross the last street, the sound of heavy metal hooves came from the stone road beside him. A steamy black horse with a rose emblem on its chest. The noble knight of the Black Rose Knights had arrived. Everyone in the street, including Des, bowed their heads. "Lord Knight, is there anything I can help you with? I'm the sheriff of the Samar Civilian District, Des Fordeland. Warren Nicholas is from your district, right?" "Yes. I want some information from his birth. I believe your public security branch should have the relevant records in the annual census." "Of course. Lord, please follow me." Des was extremely anxious. This was a member of the Black Rose Knights. He had graduated from the Knight Academy and had the ability to go beyond the city walls and fight against omnipotent life forms. In terms of level, A sheriff of the civilian district like him was nothing. Such a person was far stronger than a returee. Des didn't understand why such a person would personally take action for a returnee. Lord Knight, is there a problem with our friend, Warren? It's just my personal interest. Just give me the information. This knight was Barton Foggs, who had sent Han Dong off yesterday. He had specially come to investigate Han Dong's life before he entered the Destiny realm. The moment Knight Barton stepped through the door, the entire branch fell silent. Lord Knight, please have a seat. I'll get the staff in the archives to find the relevant information for you. Barton stared at the sheriff, who was sweating profusely, and said, By the way, are you so nervous to see me? To be able to become a sheriff, you must be a returnee, right? It's just that your ability is lacking. Just relax. I'm also a civilian. Ha! I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. Death's smile was very stiff. The key person that everyone focused on was locked up in the underground detention room of the branch. How could he not be nervous? If this knight were to find out about this, he might lose his position as sheriff. The only thing Des could do was to give Barton the information he needed. After sending this Lord Knight away, he would deal with the trouble his stupid subordinates had caused. Then he would use a large amount of funds to find a way to privately settle this matter with Nicholas. However, just when Knight Barton had just received the relevant information, waves of screams came from the underground detention room. The movement was so loud that it felt like someone had died. The civilian district is still so chaotic. Knight Barton sighed and got up to walk towards the underground detention room. Sheriff Des was so anxious that his eyes turned red, but he didn't dare to stop him. As for the fat Charles and the tall Brown, they didn't realize the seriousness of the matter at all. The two of them were even holding the sheriff's batons in their hands. They pretended to be serious and planned to suppress the troublemaker in front of this Lord Knight. When the group of people went down to the open underground detention room, the situation inside shocked everyone, including Knight Barton. The weak and sickly Han Dong didn't receive the chrysanthemum treatment. Instead, he sat alone against the wall, recuperating. However, the other bullies in the detention room were mostly gathered in the corner opposite Han Dong. Their eyes were filled with fear. There were also two people lying on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Chapter 34. Help! Help us! Devil! There's a terrifying devil hiding in this man's body. Seeing the arrival of the security personnel, the underground detention room was filled with wails. What devil? Isn't this man just a fugitive? Fatty Charles was really stupid. At such a critical moment, he still didn't realize the problem. In his eyes, Han Dong was the guy who caused trouble in the detention room. He just wanted to execute Han Dong on the spot and show off in front of the Knight. Maybe he could even be transferred to a better department. As for the fatty's companion, the tall and thin Brown, he had already noticed something. Could it be? He really is. When he was escorting Han Dong before, he also had a similar feeling of fear. Although it was just a fleeting feeling, he still clearly remembered the sense of danger that Han Dong brought to him. Just when Charles came to Han Dong with a stick, slap, a resounding slap to the face, Charles was sent flying. The one who did it was Sheriff Dace. He quickly stepped forward, took the initiative to untie the handcuffs on Han Dong's hands, and bowed 90 degrees to apologize. Warren Nicholas, my friend. My two incompetent subordinates actually did such a stupid thing. They ignored the Constitution and laws, forcibly imprisoned a trainee knight for no reason, and threatened national security. I'll send them to the local court for arbitration. In addition, I'll represent the authorities to apologize to you and your family. Dace knew the seriousness of this matter. In the current situation, this was the only and best way to deal with it. The next step was to see how open-minded this young man was. If things went wrong, Das might really be stripped of his sheriff badge. At the same time, the tall and thin Brown was completely dumbfounded. His body trembled slightly. Returner. What did I do? What stupid thing did I do? They had been using their authority to oppress civilians for a long time. They had long been used to judging people by their appearance. The real identity of this weak and sickly young man was actually a trainee knight. He sat on the ground with his eyes wide open, completely speechless. As for Charles, who was sent flying by the slab, after learning of Han Dong's identity, he was so scared that his body trembled. He even had incontinence in his lower body. Han Dong, on the other hand, looked completely fine. Other than the discomfort of wearing the handcuffs, everything else was fine. This was the effect that Han Dong wanted. He wanted to take advantage of it and trample on the local public security bureau, completely preventing his identity from being exposed so that he could dig out more information. The only thing he didn't consider was that this high and mighty knight had also come. "Warren, are you okay?" Han Dong was just about to greet the Knight of Barton, but he didn't expect him to greet him first. "It's nothing. It's just a misunderstanding." To his surprise, Barton Fergus, who looked calm, suddenly flared up. After taking off his black iron mask, he stared at the two security officers who had committed a serious crime with a hateful gaze. "This isn't a misunderstanding. I also came from the Commoner District, so I know how disgusting these cowardly people who use work as an excuse to avoid entering the Destiny realm are. Using power as small as a grain of rice to oppress the common people. Oppressing the commoners. If it weren't for the knight's strict rule of not killing, I would have beheaded you on the streets and hung your corpses in public. There's no need to be escorted to the court. I can be the representative, and the trial can be carried out directly here. Detaining a trainee knight without reason, threatening the fundamental safety of mankind, and ignoring the highest charter. Maggots in the sewers like you deserve to die, and you will be despised by thousands after your death. Warren, you have the right to take their lives right now." The knight was furious. These words frightened the entire Public Security Bureau and the temporarily detained suspects to their knees. As for the two criminals, they were so scared that they almost fainted. Barton looked extremely angry. In fact, he didn't particularly care about such trivial matters at the bottom. He just deliberately stirred up emotions and used this matter to understand Nicholas's nature. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Han Dong. Most of them hoped that Han Dong would kill these two idiots who were blind enough to detain a trainee knight. But Han Dong didn't seem to have any intention of killing them. He got up and walked to the stairs of the underground detention room, trying to ease the tense atmosphere with a smile. It's not good to fight and kill. Mankind is already in an important period of life and death. Harmonious development is the most important. I want to ask, how will they be dealt with according to normal legal procedures? Constable Dace immediately replied, "Once they are sent to court, they will face 3 outcomes for violating the highest charter. First, they will be stripped of all rights and labeled as eternal slaves. They will either work in the dirtiest latrine, pit, or mine for eternity in the deepest mine. Second, they will be used as human bait and follow the knights out of the city. Third, they will be sentenced to death. Harmony, harmony, don't kill people so easily. There aren't many humans in the first place. Everyone should make full use of their social value." When they heard Han Dong say such words, there was a hint of gratitude in Charles and Brown's eyes, thinking that this lord would be merciful and not pursue this matter. Han Dong gave his thoughts. "As for value, I think the first one is pretty good. I hope it can make them turn over a new leaf and become a new person." It was possible for them to turn over a new leaf, but once they were in the mine, they would never be able to come back up again. Constable Dace immediately responded, "I will put forward your suggestion to the court." He then had his subordinates arrest the 2 guilty subordinates and send them to the local court. "Friend Nicholas, how about we immediately go through the relevant procedures for you? Your family members will be listed in the special column. Their files will be unlocked, and they can be transferred out of the civilian area at will. At the same time, your family members will no longer be required to enter the Destiny space." Han Dong said politely, "Sir Knight Barton seems to be looking for me. You can handle these matters yourselves. If you need to make any decisions, just look for my sister, Nina Nicholas." "That's true. We can't waste Sir Knight's time." Dace immediately turned to his subordinates. "Someone, quickly invite Miss Nina Nicholas to the branch office. Be sure to invite her over politely." Just like that, Han Dong and Knight Barton left through the main entrance under the watchful eyes of the constable and all the security personnel. Just as Han Dong was about to ask Barton why he was looking for him, he was beaten to it again. Barton said coldly, "You could have shown your apprentice knight card to prove your identity when the two maggots came knocking on your door. Why would you do that on purpose?" "Ha ha." Han Dong laughed foolishly, as if he also felt that he had done something bad. "Well, it's just that just looking at those two makes me uncomfortable." Just like what Sir said, they use their small authority to bully civilians all year round. I originally planned to go to the branch office and get rid of those two maggots through normal legal channels without harming everyone's harmony. Isn't that good? Barton nodded slightly. Now I know a little about how you passed the 4-star newbie event. I came this time to satisfy my curiosity. Your wisdom is not bad, but what was the key to victory? You were able to scare the temporary suspects locked up in the branch office to the point of foaming at the mouth. Every one of them looked at you with fear and panic, as if they had seen a demon. Can you explain this matter in detail? Chapter 35. To be honest, Han Dong had made a mistake in the Public Security Bureau incident this time. Scaring the lawbreakers in the underground detention room was actually done by Han Dong on purpose. The goal was, of course, to prove that he was a returnee. But he didn't expect to bump into the Black Knight who had escorted him yesterday. That was a high-ranking person. The Black Rose Knights, who had successfully graduated from the National Royal Knight Academy and been selected as one of the 12 knights, were far superior to Han Dong, an apprentice knight, in terms of strength and status. They were far superior to the local sheriff. Under Barton Forgus's questioning, it was possible that information about the faceless head would be leaked. It would depend on Han Dong's ability to adapt. The subsequent conversation didn't take place on the streets where rats and insects were everywhere and sewage was everywhere. He sat on a mechanical black horse again. He followed Knight Barton to the neighboring Ghana civilian district. It was also one of the 4 major civilian districts, but the security, environment, and architecture here were far better than the Samar district. It was ranked first among the 4 major civilian districts. Iron Hammer and Fire Tavern. The Black Horse stopped in front of a tavern with a unique style. The tavern's outer wall was made of black iron, with complicated metal pipes embedded in the surface of the outer wall and a large cylindrical chimney in the back kitchen. If it weren't for a few bearded men who reeked of alcohol walking out of the door, Han Dong would have mistaken this place for a blacksmith shop. The horse's metal torso was covered with a cloth. It stopped at the stable at the back of the tavern and was watched over by someone. Barton Forgus, who walked out of the stable, took off his seemingly heavy black iron armor and changed into a simple Asian shirt and a leather vest. The majestic aura of a knight dissipated. At this moment, Barton Forgus had completely blended into the civilian district. Strangers couldn't recognize his true identity. "Just call me Barton here. There's no need for etiquette." "Okay, come with me to the tavern." Pushing open the door of the Black Iron Tavern, most of the people sitting inside were dressed in plain clothes. They had bald heads, fat ears, and big bellies. They held large glasses of ale. As he walked to the bar counter, a voice with a strong local accent sounded. "Barton, my old friend, long time no see. I thought you had gone to the top and didn't remember me. I was afraid that your reputation would scare away my customers. So there's a private room in the back reserved for you." The one who spoke was a tavern owner with a thick goatee. "Old John, business is still so good." Old John leaned close and whispered, "How can it not be good? My tavern once had a noble and powerful Black Rose Knight. Look around, there are portraits of you, and there's even a metal model of you on the bar. Haha, don't mind that I'm using you to advertise in private. Use whatever you want. I don't have much time out this time. Take us to a private room." All right. Old John was a warm and generous person. On the way to the private room, he asked the thin Han Dong, "What does this frail friend do? Don't tell me he's your lackey." "He's a probationary knight who has just become a returnee. He was born a commoner like me, but he's from the Samar district." "Samar district?" Han Dong replied with a smile. "Yes. My name is Warren Nicholas." Old John sized up Han Dong and suddenly laughed while stroking his beard. "Ha, my old eyes can't see anything, but you're really not bad to be able to climb out of the lowest Samar district. Young man, you have to try my signature here today, hammer liquor. As long as your body can withstand it, I, Old John, will definitely make you a friend. If you come here to drink in the future, I'll give you a 40% discount." Give it a try. Han Dong really didn't think that his body could do anything. It would be troublesome if he drank too much and caused liver failure. The sealed black iron private room could be considered a luxurious private room. Animal fur carpet, antler decoration, kerosene lamp. 2 extra-large glasses of hammer liquor were personally delivered by Old John. High-concentration malt liquor held in a huge hammer-shaped container. Han Dong felt uncomfortable just by staring at this glass of liquor. At the same time, it was also served with pepper pork sausages, fried cod strips, and other delicious dishes. "Old John, I have some private matters to discuss with this friend." "Understood. If there's anything, just say my name." The door was locked. After a simple meal and drink, the topic returned to the main topic. "There are very few returnees in the civilian district. I'm also very curious about how you did it. I originally planned to learn about your past through the local archives. Since we happen to run into each other, I'll ask in person. Can you tell me about your abilities in private? After all, when you arrive at the academy, there will be someone to ask about it. I can help you do some secret work in advance." This sentence expressed Barton's attitude. It seemed that he was on the same side as Han Dong. However, Han Dong still had some reservations. "Yes, actually, before I entered the Destiny space, I taught myself some mysticism knowledge in advance." Self-taught. Barton didn't quite believe it. "You haven't been educated, right? My mother taught me how to read. I was born with poor health and couldn't go out to work. Every day, I stayed at home with nothing to do, so I thought of reading to pass the time. By chance, I discovered that there were quite a lot of scrapbooks flowing down from a junkyard not too far from home. The price was very cheap. For example, books like A Brief Introduction to the Development of Modern Mysticism, A Summary of Mysticism, Astrology Theory, and so on could be found. I also tried to copy secret texts and draw arrays on paper. About a year ago, I read until late at night. After putting down the book and going to sleep, I had a very strange dream. I don't remember the exact contents of the dream, but I vaguely remember that the dream was very messy, like various fragments pieced together. After waking up, there was an additional mass of energy in my brain. After this explanation, it made Barton Fergus go from being in complete disbelief to being skeptical. Han Dong continued, "Through the touch of the palm, I can initiate a kind of subconscious instruction to the target. The impact isn't too great, and it can't change a person's mind. It can only implant a subconscious. This technique allowed me to smoothly come into contact with the characters during the Destiny event and quickly establish a relationship. After that, the distribution of Destiny points made me more familiar with this technique. Previously, at the Public Security Bureau, I quickly planted a seed of fear in the minds of those people by touching them. They looked at me as if they had seen a demon and were scared witless. That's about the situation." At the same time, Samay District, Han Dong's home. A lurker wearing a shadow robe was secretly inspecting his room. During the inspection, a large number of old books related to mysticism were found. The books were also filled with notes, and a few crude self-drawn arrays were also found in the drawer. 2 days ago, Nicholas's room didn't have these books at all. Han Dong had asked his sister, Nina, to do all of this. These old books were easy to find in some recycling centers and could be bought with a small amount of money. Han Dong had been thinking about how to hide the matter of the faceless head. Since it was related to mysticism, then he could pretend to be a self-taught genius. Now, that Han Dong was a mysticism apprentice, as long as his words matched the situation in the room, even if the higher-ups wanted to investigate, it would be difficult to find a real problem. Chapter 36. As for Han Dong's so-called self-taught experience, Barton Foggs was dubious. Now that Han Dong had passed through the Destiny realm and allocated the relevant points to mysticism, It was impossible to know if he was really self-taught. He needed to wait for another investigator to gather the information before summarizing it. That's right. This was a rule set by the Holy City's Council. The Knights were the hope of humanity. Any trainee knight who entered the National Royal Knight Academy to further their studies had to verify their background and experience in addition to their talent and ability being recognized. All possibilities that could harm the foundation of the Holy City were eliminated. Barton Foggs was appointed as Warren Nicholas's monitor by the higher-ups. He was required to investigate the returnee's background and investigate all potential dangers within the first 3 days of school. Barton was just doing his job. If that's the case, your weak body will become an important opportunity for you to delve deeper into mysticism. Very good. I look forward to your future performance. Knight Barton, I have a few questions. Han Dong seized this opportunity to ask the high and mighty knight in-depth questions. Han Dong still had a lot of doubts about the Destiny realm and the choice of classes. While asking, he could also use the questions to divert the topic, so as to prevent Barton from asking in-depth questions about the details. Ask away. The Destiny system said that at least 5 Destiny points need to be allocated to a major class to perfect the class and activate the talent tree. Is there a possibility of practicing other classes? Yes, but it's not recommended. When you activate the talent tree, you'll naturally understand. Because you'll find that you don't have enough points, and the difficulty of obtaining points will get higher and higher. It's not just about passing the trials in the Destiny realm, but also some necessary conditions. There's no extra points to practice other classes. Moreover, the large number of branches of the talent tree can completely satisfy your pursuit of different powers. Take the mysticism that you chose as an example. There are differences between the body, soul, or long-range spells. Understood. The Destiny realm also advised Han Dong to choose a major class and not be distracted. Now it seemed that it was indeed correct. Once the talent tree was activated, a large amount of points would be needed to invest, and the difficulty of obtaining Destiny points would gradually increase. Han Dong continued asking, I only have a general understanding of mysticism from some useless books. Although I've invested fate points into mysticism, I'm still not sure how to use the related abilities. Can I learn it from external books in the Academy? That's right. The distribution of Destiny points only allows us to step onto the corresponding path. You still have to rely on your own hard work to walk down this path. The Academy will recommend the most suitable skills for you based on your major and areas of expertise. When the time comes, there will be a corresponding Knight mentor to guide you. It is said that the Knight instructors of the Mystic branch are all very strange. You have to be mentally prepared. Yes. Thank you, Sir Knight. Barton downed a large cup of malt liquor and said seriously, You're right. In short, prepare well. In the next Fate event, you will enter together with a novice knight of the same rank, and the difficulty of the event will increase exponentially. I don't need to tell you the relevant information. There will naturally be people in the Academy who will explain in detail. I hope you can cultivate the heart of a knight and join our team. Fight for the dead pioneers, fight for humanity, and fight for freedom. What followed was a chat about the Commoner District. Barton, who had eaten his fill, led his black horse and prepared to leave because the knights had other arrangements. Perhaps it was because he was also from the Commoner District like Han Dong, or perhaps it was because he drank too much, but the usually reticent Barton was clearly more talkative today. Before mounting the horse, his palm landed on Han Dong's shoulder. Remember, no matter what your major is, your body is still very important. It will be difficult for your body to endure some of the physical training in the Academy. So think of a way to solve it yourself. The warning ended. Steam spurted out from the horse's hooves as it galloped away. Phew. Han Dong took a deep breath and thought, that was close. Fortunately, I was prepared in advance. Otherwise, the matter regarding the faceless head might have been exposed. Only when Barton Forgus completely disappeared from sight did Han Dong relax a little. During the conversation in the tavern, Han Dong was very careful with his use of every word. He knew very well that Barton was here to test him. The humans of this world are struggling on the edge of life and death. If you are not careful, you may end up extinct. For such an important order of knights that touches the foundation of the country and relates to the continuation of mankind, every new knight must be clear about their origins. Yesterday's interview was only to verify if I have potential and if I have the value of being nurtured. I was given a certificate of admission and 3 days of rest. During the rest period, I will naturally be completely relaxed, using the 3 days of relaxation to test me. If any problems are found, I may be secretly disposed of. This country is more cautious than I thought. After all, this is not an era of peace, but the apocalypse. Be careful. A certain Hall of Knights. Barton Forgus told the detailed information he had gathered from his contact with Han Dong and gave his own opinion. The overall situation is like this. My personal opinion of Warren Nicholas is neutral. Then, another investigator secretly sneaked into Han Dong's house and reported the details of the investigation in the form of a document. The large number of old books on occultism confirmed Han Dong's theory. Han Dong had a unique talent in occultism, and he was a self-taught genius. A group of elders in the hall began to discuss the information they had gathered. After coming up with the discussion, they stamped a trainee knight document. Then there's no problem. This Warren Nicholas is a talented mystical apprentice. In the future, he will have greater achievements in mysticism and should be able to serve the Order of Knights in the future. Let him officially enroll. As long as we can confirm his kind nature, we will provide him with the best environment for growth. After all, mystical scholars have the highest mortality rate among the 5 major professions. We are in urgent need of talents in mysticism. The investigation team that went out to explore the city last time did not have any mystical scholars. There were more serious casualties, and the depth of the exploration was insufficient. This further proves the necessity of mystical scholars. At this point, Han Dong was officially a trainee knight. Let's go home. Iron Hammer and Fire Tavern was near the intersection of the 2 districts. Han Dong decided to walk back to Samay District. When he approached the intersection area, he first passed by a cemetery. Then, not far from the cemetery, he discovered a Victorian-style 2-story villa surrounded by a large crowd, as well as a large number of public security personnel with ugly expressions. The public security team had already separated the crowd, ensuring that the civilians were at least 5 meters away from the building. Out of curiosity, Han Dong blended into the crowd. The scene he saw through the gaps in the crowd made Han Dong feel a little uncomfortable. In front of the building was a woman who had been damaged to a certain extent. But for some reason, even the public security personnel did not dare to approach. They seemed to be waiting for a special case officer to arrive. At this moment, a blond youth in white light armor squeezed out of the crowd. He was in his early 20s. In his hand, he was holding the same trainee knight card as Han Dong. The public security personnel immediately made way. After he examined the damage of the woman's body at the door, his expression turned ugly. He turned to the crowd and shouted, "Excuse me, are there any other trainee knights here? If you are willing to solve this ghoul case with me, I'm willing to share at least 30% of the bounty." Chapter 37. Ghoul Case. Han Dong's curiosity was piqued. Even the holy city isn't completely safe? Ghouls. Why would a monster from Western literature appear in a house? According to the apprentice knight, it seemed that there was a bounty issued by a relevant organization behind the case. As long as one could solve the case, they would receive a certain amount of money. He must have estimated the strength of the ghoul based on the damage done to the corpse. It might be difficult for him to deal with it alone, so he decided to recruit a teammate. If I help, I can use this opportunity to understand the case and the reason why monsters appear in private houses. At the same time, I can also learn about the bounty and receive a certain amount of money. Right now, I'm really short on money, but there are also risks. It's easy to be exposed. Plus, I haven't officially entered the academy, so dealing with ghouls might be dangerous. Han Dong didn't take any action against the golden-haired young knight's temporary recruitment order. He hadn't officially entered the Knight Academy, so he hadn't received any training in mysticism. Apart from the tentacle attack that came with the faceless head, he didn't know any mystical skills. Wait, if it's against enemies, I have one. After waiting for about 5 minutes, the young knight felt helpless. Apprentice knights are mostly studying in the academy. Even if they go out, they won't descend to the civilian district to waste their time. The bounty only mentioned that there was a suspected theft of a corpse in the cemetery between the civilian district of Ghana and the civilian district of Samar. Since it wasn't too long ago, we were asked to come and capture a newly born ghoul that had fallen into depravity. From the depth of the scratches and the residue of the fungus on the corpse, it must be an adult ghoul. The news has already been sent back to the academy, and the bounty has been increased. But if I go back to find a team now, this ghoul might slip away. A large amount of copper coins as a reward, plus extra credits. I really don't want to give it up, but I can't joke with my life. The young knight put away his sword, as if he didn't want to enter the house to investigate. As long as he was alive, there would be opportunities. Especially since he was already studying in the academy, there was no need to take this risk. At this moment, a skinny, brown-haired young man slowly squeezed out of the crowd. He was wearing a slightly oversized linen shirt. Under his yellowed skin, the lines on his bones were clearly visible. Dangerous area, prohibited, just as a security officer was about to use brute force to push Han Dong back into the crowd. A golden card was handed over. Novice Knight. For a moment, the security personnel stared at Han Dong in surprise and took the initiative to make way for him. I don't know if I can help. After some consideration, Han Dong determined that the benefits of helping outweighed the disadvantages. How many points do you have in your major? The young knight walked over and examined Han Dong from head to toe. To be honest, even those nerds who majored in library were in better physical condition than Han Dong. 2 points of mysticism. My name is Alan Andwa. Han Dong purposely used a fake name since he couldn't find out anything about it now. 2 points just enough. However, the mystic arts that you practice will be a little troublesome to deal with ghouls in this limited space. Let me introduce myself. My name is Cass Maldini. I've already allocated 3 fate points to Crusader. My strength and speed allow me to fight the typical ghoul head-on. However, this was where the problem lay. You'll know when you come over. Under Cass's guidance, the two of them came to the female owner who was hanging by the door. When I first received the bounty, it only mentioned newborn ghouls. However, the wounds on the corpse indicate that the ghoul hiding in this building is already mature. I even suspect that this family is deliberately concealing the truth and secretly rearing ghouls in the basement. Mature ghouls are slightly better than me in all aspects. The most troublesome thing is their vitality. If I can't chop off their head or penetrate their heart, other attacks won't be able to stop the ghoul. As Han Dong listened, he examined the claw-shaped wounds on the female owner's body. The area that was torn apart by the sharp claws is showing signs of gangrene, swelling of the cells, and severe obstruction of blood circulation. Even if it's not fatal, just a scratch is enough to cause a quick death. Is this a ghoul? No wonder this novice knight doesn't dare to carry out missions alone. The danger is greater than I imagined. Once injured and not treated in time, there's a high chance of death. Andwa, tell me about your abilities. If you're more inclined towards prediction and investigation like astrology, then forget about it. Han Dong was very direct. He took out a short blade that was surrounded by a green aura. This made Cass in front of him reveal a shocked expression. A weapon of fate that suits your main element? What does it do? It can release a non-directional plague attack. Plague. Ghouls may have a certain resistance to it. However, since it's a weapon of fate, it must have some effect. All right, when we fight later, you must listen to my commands and don't act rashly. Also, your body isn't very good. You must hide behind me. Okay. Cass secretly pulled Han Dong's sleeve and asked in a low voice, cough cough by the way, how did you get this weapon of fate? Hidden event. As expected. I knew it, those guys didn't believe me. From the cards of fate that have a small probability of obtaining a weapon from a main event, the probability of obtaining a weapon is pitifully low. You must do your best to explore the hidden event and obtain a weapon of fate from the hidden reward. I really envy you. Although my sword and shield are made of pure silver and have a certain exorcism effect, it's still far from a weapon of fate. Wait for me. I'll have the security personnel here bring their guns and surround the building. This is to prevent the ghouls from suddenly escaping while we are fighting. From the way Cass spoke and the way he handled things, it was obvious that this wasn't the first time he accepted this kind of bounty mission. After arranging the personnel, the body of the female master was wrapped in a body bag and transported to the church for purification and cremation. Everything was ready. Han Dong followed behind Cass and stepped into the Victorian-style villa. As soon as he entered the door, he could smell the stench of rotten flesh. Cass was slightly uncomfortable, but Han Dong was completely fine. After all, Han Dong was a man who dealt with bacteria all day long when he was alive. Once there was a problem with the bacteria culture, that smell could immediately make people want to diet and lose weight. Where's your goggles? Cass took out the necessary brass goggles from his waist and put them on. I didn't bring them. Aren't you afraid of death? Once you've been mentally contaminated, it's not as simple as relieving pressure. Fortunately, when I went out today, I also brought a spare pair of goggles with me. Take them. Thank you. Han Dong took the goggles and quickly put them on. Cass said, "You're a mystic, so you should know more about ghouls than I do. Although they are transformed from humans, they have a certain connection with the things outside the city walls. Wear the goggles properly. Once they're damaged, immediately withdraw from the battle." Okay. Han Dong didn't understand at all. After listening to Cass, he became more curious about the use of the goggles and the higher life forms that occupied this world. Chapter 38. Just a reminder, Han Dong used the pseudonym Alan Anderson in the previous chapter. The basic frame of the goggles was made of some kind of flexible and light metal. The exterior was plated with a layer of brass. At the same time, it was equipped with gears, bearings, and a retractable belt, making it easy to wear and adjust. However, Han Dong was not sure about the material of the lens. It should not be ordinary glass. It was probably made of some special transparent material that could protect the eyes from visual pollution from a special wavelength of light. Han Dong, who was wearing the goggles, considered an important problem. Before the search, Han Dong reached out and stopped Cass, who was about to start the search. "I have a question. Why did the ghoul hang its mistress at the door?" Cass explained based on the knowledge he learned from books. Mature ghouls have a certain level of intelligence. This kind of public display behavior means that the ghoul's hatred for its mistress has reached a certain level. If it were me, and I really wanted to public display my enemy, I would choose to escape in the middle of the night and hang it at the door. By the time someone found out, I would have already escaped. There was no need to be so ostentatious. Han Dong was right. If the ghoul was intelligent, why would it do such a conspicuous thing? Hanging its mistress at the door in broad daylight. Wasn't that just inviting trouble to itself? Han Dong continued to speculate. Is it possible that it has already escaped? Cass immediately denied it. Impossible. Due to the burglary in the cemetery, the security team has been conducting house-to-house investigations recently. They rushed to the scene immediately and saw the mistress hanging at the door. They even saw the back of the ghoul. In a short period of time, more than 30 security personnel armed with guns completely surrounded the house. There has been no sign of the ghoul escaping. Han Dong shook his head. Not necessarily. It can't escape from the house, but it doesn't mean that it can't escape from other places. Didn't you say that this family was suspected of secretly feeding ghouls? Since it could be kept a secret for so many years, is it possible that this family's basement has been modified and can be extended to other places? When Han Dong said this, Cass was suddenly enlightened. It's really possible. Oh no! Holding his sword and shield, Cass immediately rushed to the basement. This person's movement speed didn't seem like he was wearing armor that hindered his movements at all. He was as swift as the wind, reaching the end of the hallway and finding the hidden entrance to the basement. Han Dong wasn't that fast. Instead, he deliberately waited for Cass to head to the basement before secretly releasing the possessed Chun Li from the prison. Miss Chun-Li, I'll have to trouble you to conduct a thorough search of the first and second floors of this building. If you discover any ghouls, inform me immediately. Also, if you find any books related to ghouls, bring them with you. If anyone else breaks in during this period, return to the prison immediately. If there really is a secret passage in the basement, remember to follow me later. Keep a distance of no more than 10 meters from me. Make sure you can enter and leave the portable prison at any time. Han Dong was only guessing that the ghouls might have escaped through the secret passageway in the basement. He wasn't 100% sure, so he had to be careful. In addition, after testing, Chun-Li could instantly return to the prison as long as she was within a range of 10 meters. All right, before Chun-Li took action, she still asked worriedly, I can smell an evil stench in this house. Are you sure you're okay alone? If you're in danger, can I help you? It depends on the situation. Try not to come out as much as possible. Also, this knight we're working with is quite capable. It shouldn't be a big problem. Okay, be careful. Chun-Li first went up the stairs and searched the second floor to find what Han Dong wanted. Han Dong took the plague doctor's short blade and followed Cass's footsteps. The moment they stepped into the basement, the smell became even stronger. There were a large number of animal bones left on the ground in the basement. Some residue still hung on the tip of the bone spurs, still warm. Clearly, the ghouls had just finished their feeding process. Friend Andwa, you're really something. There really is a secret passage. Cass discovered a loose stone brick on the wall of the basement through the liquid traces on the ground. After pressing it, a gloomy secret passage filled with a rotten smell appeared. This direction, could it be that it extends to the public cemetery? No wonder. Even if it's the civilian district, the management of the public cemetery is very strict. There are at least 3 night watchers, and firearms are allowed. We only found that the corpse was stolen, but there were no traces of loose soil. It turns out that the corpse was stolen from the underground area. This is a little troublesome. Cass was still very experienced. He turned his head and looked at Han Dong behind him. Friend Andwa, if we successfully get rid of the ghouls, I'm willing to give you 40% of the reward. Also, the situation here is much more complicated than I imagined. If the incident didn't happen in this house, but in the cemetery, there might be more than 1 ghouls. Once we encounter more than 2 ghouls, immediately abandon the mission and report it to the Night Academy for stronger people to deal with it. Han Dong nodded. If that's the case, my previous guess wasn't quite right. The ghoul's purpose of hanging the female owner's body at the door was indeed intentional. Revenge is one reason. The second reason might be to deliberately lure people in. If there are many ghouls, they must be a little hungry. Once they're full, they'll escape from the other side of the cemetery. Cass nodded slightly, and his expression turned ugly. Your body is a little weak. Follow behind me. Just provide long-range support. It could be seen that Cass was a knight with a rather righteous aura. If they really encountered danger, he would choose to escape with Han Dong. The walls of the secret passage were covered with black mycelium. A large number of spores floated in the air. Before entering, Cass reached out and touched the right side of the goggles. Only the sound of gears rotating could be heard. Through precise folding and unfolding, a half-covering leather mask hidden in the goggles immediately appeared and covered the parts below the eyes. It could effectively filter out this type of mycelium. Han Dong followed suit. A black mask immediately covered his mouth and nose. Let's go. Cass took out a simple kerosene lamp and walked in front with a sword in his other hand. Han Dong deliberately found a piece of scrap metal in the basement to block the secret passage door to prevent it from closing by itself. As the two of them went deeper, at the stairs of the basement, Chun-Li slowly walked down in cloth shoes. Before they walked out of the passage, they could already hear the sound of claws scraping and teeth rubbing against each other. At the same time, there were more and more mycelium on the walls of the passage. Judging from the sound, there's more than 1 ghoul. To be honest, Cass was a little scared. However, if he needed to report to the Knights Guild that there were many ghouls at the bottom of the cemetery, he had to gather enough information. Hearing alone was not enough. If the ghouls escaped in advance by the time the night's squad arrived, Cass would be held responsible for a false report. Friend Andwa, you wait here. Your body won't be able to outrun the ghouls. I'll go take a look alone. Once I find the ghoul's nest, I'll retreat immediately. All right. Cass walked forward alone. After about 10 minutes, overlapping sounds of running came from the depths. Hurry up and leave this place. It's the ghoul's nest. There are more than 10 ghouls. We have to report the situation quickly. Chapter 39. Fortunately, he had foreseen the danger ahead of time. Han Dong stopped halfway and let Cass investigate on his own. Otherwise, once they reached the end, Han Dong would not be able to escape with his body. Judging from the sound, Cass was still 100 meters away from Han Dong, but the situation was still critical. Chun-Li immediately appeared and supported Han Dong as they sped away from the secret passage. Judging from the number of overlapping claw sounds, there are at least 3 ghouls chasing us. As long as we can escape back to the basement, there's still a way. With Chun-Li's help, Han Dong ran back to the basement at the speed of a normal person. Miss Chun-Li, hurry up and hide. I'll ask for your help if necessary. Okay. Han Dong guarded the entrance of the secret passage alone and waited for Cass' arrival. Not long after, Cass, who was holding a torch, appeared in his field of vision. Cass, who was wearing a pair of goggles, had some dark lines around his eyes. It was the appearance of visual corruption. Behind Cass, there were at least 5 ghouls, each of them in different forms. With the light from the torch, this was the first time Han Dong saw the true appearance of a ghoul. It was a humanoid creature with rubber-like, elastic, dark green skin. Its patella protruded, and its sharp teeth, which could easily crush bones, were exposed. Its curved spine protruded out of its body, and the muscle tissue covering its entire body was tight and strong. Whether it was its skin, teeth, or its terrifying sharp claws, they were all covered in dense black fungus. Once it tore through human skin, it would instantly cause infectious damage. If the wound was not treated in time, it would immediately fester and fester. It could even cause necrosis in a short period of time. Even if it survived, it would have to be amputated. If one observed carefully, they would notice a dangerous and undetectable detail. On the surface of these ghouls' bodies, there were a few inconspicuous natural wounds. Occasionally, a short tentacle would appear on the surface of these wounds. It was very strange. The ghoul's movement speed was about the same as Cass, who had invested 3 fate points. In particular, one of the ghouls was half the size of the other ghouls, and its spine protruded out of its body. It was even faster than the other ghouls. Its sharp claws could even easily leave scratches on the stone walls. His speed was even faster. In fact, he was gradually pulling away from the ghouls behind him as he chased after Cass. He was about to catch up to the young Cass. The sharp claws had just cut the surface of the armor on Cass' back. He rushed out of the tunnel. For a moment, Cass lost his balance and fell to the ground as he rushed out of the passage. Han Dong calculated the time and reached out to touch the switch. The secret door closed. Crack! It was just right. Of course, visual pollution was secondary. How to deal with this ghoul was the key. At this moment, bang! A bottle of holy water bomb smashed into the ghoul's body, which was the bottle of holy water. Asterisk sizzle. Asterisk a large amount of white steam rose. The ghoul rolled on the ground in pain, but because its claws were waving randomly, it was not easy to get close and finish it off. Andwa, my friend, stand behind me. We can still deal with a mature ghoul. He used the opportunity obtained by the holy water bomb. Han Dong immediately stood behind Cass so that he would not be left alone. Find the right opportunity and attack from a distance like just now. Low-level monsters like ghouls are still unable to break away from the category of humans in terms of physical structure. You are a mystic scholar, so you should know better than me. Just aim at their head and heart. Okay. After that, Cass got into a combat stance. He held a shield in his left hand and stood in front of him. He held a sword in his right hand and placed it behind the shield. This stance seemed to have a special meaning Crusader's power. For a moment, the golden-haired, silver-armored Cass body emitted a faint silver light. There was even a faint cross mark on his forehead. It was similar to a temporary amplification skill. The ghoul that was corroded by the holy water recovered in a short period of time, and it was already in an enraged state. Some black smoke leaked out of its black eyes. Pounce! It was determined to tear Cass into pieces. Deep breaths. His center of gravity sank. The moment the ghoul pounced, the veins on Cass' forehead bulged. He stomped on the ground with his hind legs and poured all his strength into his shield-wielding left arm. Shield bash. Clang. A dull sound of metal clashing. The 2-meter-tall ghoul was sent flying by Cass' shield bash. So heavy, it's a bit strenuous. Cass suppressed the tremors in his arm. He retracted his shield and charged forward swiftly. The moment the ghoul landed, he swung his silver sword. Cross slash. Wherever the silver light went, the ghoul's body was completely cut open. The black heart hidden under the ribs was clearly visible. Chapter 40. Amazing. In the world I lived in, it's impossible for a youth of the same age to reach this level. His attacks are so natural and smooth. If it was an ordinary enemy, they would have died in Cass' hands. This was the first time Han Dong had seen the strength of an apprentice knight. After being shocked, Han Dong yearned for this kind of destiny power even more. Cass, who had invested 3 destiny points in Crusader as his main talent, had a combat strength far surpassing his physical strength. The strength of his physical body, combined with his fighting skills, far surpassed the limits of a normal person of the same age. He sent the ghoul, which was taller than him and had more developed muscles, flying away. Then, he perfectly connected with the ghoul and continued his combo. However, ding! The crisp sound of metal clashing echoed in the basement. The instant he used the cross slash to break open the ghoul's chest, he immediately stabbed at the heart. Who would have thought that the sharp tip of the silver sword would be blocked by the black substance surrounding the heart? A fully mature ghoul has formed bone armor at its weak points. At the same time, Han Dong made his move behind him. A wave of plague energy accurately shot at the bone armor around the chest. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the plague was slowly corroding the black interlayer that covered the chest. Cass smiled and prepared to stab a second time. Who knew? The ghoul, who had fallen to the ground and had its chest torn open, ignored its injuries and bounced up with a burst of energy from its waist. The sharp claws created sparks on Cass' armor, and the powerful force even sent Cass flying. Bang! A dull sound of impact. Cass crashed heavily into the wall, and traces of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. 5 scratch marks were left on the armor in front of his chest. The middle scratch had completely torn the armor apart and scraped the skin on his chest. In a few seconds, the wound had turned green and pus flowed out. Furthermore, due to the confrontation with the ghoul during the battle, the black lines on the black lines had become darker. The black lines around Cass's eyes had deepened in color. Problems had appeared in his thinking. Sometimes, he would see terrifying illusions. His battle would be greatly affected. Han Dong frowned. The situation had become unfavorable for them. This night Cass was an upright person and was not scheming. Previously, when he smelled danger in the secret passage, he let Han Dong stay in the central region and explored alone. Just this alone was enough to show Cass' character. Cass, don't move. Your physical activity will accelerate blood flow and carry the fungus to other parts of your body. If possible, try to burn the wound with fire to remove the fungus. But you can't deal with this thing. I must. Don't move. I have an idea. Han Dong's roar shocked Kars. He did not expect a weak, mysterious apprentice to be able to make such a bold roar. Han Dong stared at the ghoul, or more accurately at its chest. The plague attack had already taken effect, and the bone armor protecting its heart had been greatly weakened. Han Dong's roar attracted the ghoul's attention once again. The battle had to be settled here. Otherwise, once Cass was left behind, he would definitely be eaten clean. Aku! Strange words came out of the ghoul's mouth. The ghoul quickly crawled over, its claws easily cutting through the cement floor. Han Dong calmed himself down and steadied his mind. He pointed the dagger at the ghoul's eyes. As a portion of the energy in the brain was extracted, a ray of plague energy accurately hit the ghoul's eyeball. It lost its vision. This caused the ghoul's attack to deviate. Han Dong dodged in a direction, just in time to avoid the attack. The ghoul that missed its target crashed into the pile of junk in the basement due to inertia, and its body was buried by the junk. Good chance. When Cass saw this, he wanted to help, but a strong tearing sensation came from his chest, causing him to gasp for breath with one hand on the ground. He could not exert any strength at all. At this moment, Cass, who was already seeing double, saw a terrifying scene. A woman in red clothes had appeared beside Han Dong without him noticing. This woman was wrapped in a layer of viscous evil aura, and the kitchen knife in her hand was a direct threat to Cass. What is this? Is this a terrifying illusion I'm seeing? Or is it Andua's summoned creature? Just as Cass was puzzled, the woman in red moved. She was extremely fast. Before the ghoul could crawl out of the pile of junk, the kitchen knife in her hand fell rapidly. How should he put it? Chun-Li, who was wielding the kitchen knife, felt like a berserker. Looking from afar, the blink shadow of the first knife had not disappeared, and the second knife was quickly chopped down. Even Han Dong was very surprised. Chun-Li in the Destiny realm did not have this kind of level. Is this the ability of the Holy Grail to increase one's ability? Combat ability just went from E+ to D-, and the increase is already so big. In a short period of time, the kitchen knife cut off all the ghoul's limbs. At the same time, an iron chain found in the basement was used to strangle the ghoul's neck so that the fangs in its mouth could not be a threat. The final attack will be delivered by Han Dong. The bone layer of the heart in its chest had been completely corroded. The dagger was aimed at the heart and accurately pierced it. A strange cry echoed in the basement, and even the security personnel guarding the building heard it. After the ghoul's body twitched a few times, it stopped moving. Han Dong quickly took out a syringe and extracted the cell essence of the mature ghoul in a blind spot where Cass could not see. He then quietly moved one of the ghoul's arms into the brain space. Cass, whose vision was blurred due to the pain, did not see all of this clearly. At the same time, he was also immersed in the shock of Han Dong killing the mature ghoul, and did not notice Han Dong's subsequent little tricks. Andua, you are amazing. Didn't I tell you not to move? The infection has stopped? After doing all this, Han Dong looked at Cass. The infected wound on his chest had been completely disinfected. As for the disinfection tool, it was a holy water bomb. The holy water inside had a great restraining effect on the gloomy fungus brought out from the graveyard, and the effect was better than fire. However, Cass was still slightly weak, and he slowly recovered after resting for a while. This is your summon creature? I've only heard of those guys who majored in control, being able to control evil spirits, summon wild beasts, or establish a connection with the void. I didn't expect mysticism to be able to do so as well. Just an unexpected gain. Since Cass said so, Han Dong could only go along with his idea and hide it. No wonder your body is so weak, yet you still have 2 fate points allocated to mysticism. Looks like you used them all on strengthening your summon creatures. Impressive. While they were talking, Chun-Li seemed to be afraid of strangers. After asking for Han Dong's permission, she quietly returned to the prison. Cass had seen many similar scenes of summoned beasts disappearing, so he wasn't surprised. Go. We need to report the matter of the ghoul lair to our superiors as soon as possible. Otherwise, this civilian district will be in big trouble. Cass quickly took out a burlap bag and put away the corpse of the ghoul as evidence for completing the bounty. Why is it missing a hand? It must have been corroded by the plague energy, Han Dong said softly. That's true. This is a weapon of fate. Cass didn't have any suspicions as he carried the burlap bag and left the basement with Han Dong. Not long after, professional knights arrived and completely destroyed the small ghoul lair in a short period of time. As Cass discovered and reported the ghoul lair, his bounty mission was rewarded with an additional 50%. Chapter 41. 50-50. Initially, when they were temporarily recruited, it was set at 70-30. During the mission, Han Dong had made the correct inference that there was an escape tunnel in the basement. Thus, Cass had increased the share to 40%. Later on, with Han Dong's help, only one ghoul was released. With Han Dong's unique ability, the ghoul was killed. After submitting the bounty mission, Cass Maldini gave Han Dong half a bag of copper coins at the entrance of the church. So much. Han Dong was a little surprised. There were at least 100 copper coins in the bag. If it weren't for your help, Andwa, not only would I not have been able to complete the mission, but my life would also have been in danger. This is what you deserve. Also, according to your request, I only mentioned my name when I submitted the mission. Cass didn't ask too much about why Han Dong deliberately hid it. After all, everyone has their privacy. Cass guessed that Han Dong had snuck out. If the Academy found out, the bounty would be white collar. Okay, Han Dong didn't know the value of the half bag of copper coins. Friend Andwa, is your summoned creature the contract signing type or the mind control type? It's so powerful. The former. It seems like it's not a coincidence that you obtained a weapon of destiny. Can you leave a way to contact me? In the future, if there are any bounty missions that need to be completed in a team, or when it's an important moment of destiny, I can do it with you. Although I was injured when dealing with the ghouls, I'm still very powerful when I'm serious. It wasn't that Han Dong didn't want to form a team. To be able to get to know a crusader who had already been allocated 3 fate points was very good for Han Dong's future development. However, Han Dong didn't know how to answer this question. Contact information naturally represented the means of communication in the current era. However, according to normal history, the means of communication in the age of steam were still at the stage of paper letters. Telegraphs only appeared at the beginning of the Second Industrial Revolution. Han Dong had asked Nina about this. The result was that electricity didn't exist in the Holy City. Therefore, telegraphs naturally didn't exist. They were still using radio communication. However, the means of communication still existed. In this special era, the supernatural and steam technology collided head-on. Humans in the apocalypse developed an alternative means of communication. Let the copper piece and the gear cooperate to output the relevant signal. Through the precise formation to identify the signal and transmit it, it could achieve timely transmission and directional transmission. It was equivalent to a communication product produced by the combination of magic and metal. Han Dong had no idea what he looked like. Just as Han Dong did not know how to answer contact, Cass used his index finger and thumb to buckle the clockwork mechanism on his wrist. The clockwork mechanism, which looked like a watch, began to creak, folding and unfolding. Intricate copper keys appeared from the inside, allowing the clockwork mechanism to derive an operation panel similar to that of an old-fashioned mobile phone. The 1 to 9 copper keys had a touch similar to that of a typewriter. Han Dong immediately did as he was told. Sure enough, the clockwork mechanism also gave birth to a control panel. At the same time, at the bottom of the clockwork mechanism, a series of numbers was generated, which was the machine's number. In this way, the two exchanged numbers, and Han Dong was officially acquainted with an apprentice knight. At least from the ghoul incident, it could be seen that Cass Maldini was a good person and worth befriending. That's it. I have to hurry up and repair my armor. If there's anything in the future, we can contact each other anytime. Okay, bye. To be honest, Han Dong, who had just escaped from the Destiny realm, had not had time to study the clockwork mechanism. Currently, he stared at the clockwork mechanism for a long time and felt that it was a masterpiece. There might be other ancillary functions which would be activated when Han Dong became an apprentice knight. Let's go home. Han Dong used his identity as an apprentice knight to set off from the church. He passed through the Moslobby River, which was guarded by sentries, and returned to the familiar civilian area of Samar. Nina had already registered as an apprentice knight in the Public Security Bureau. Their family would not be restricted by the mandatory rules of this area, and they could move out of the slums at any time. As soon as Han Dong returned home, Nina immediately hugged him tightly. Nina pounced on him and hugged him tightly. She was so excited that she couldn't speak clearly. After all, Han Dong had brought great changes to the family. Brother, did you know, after you were taken away, Sheriff Dace personally came to apologize and gave us 5 copper coins. Now, we don't have to worry about food anymore. Is 5 copper coins a lot? A lot. Mom works outside for a year and only earns 10 copper coins. When I follow Master, he'll occasionally give me a copper coin at the end of the month when he's in a good mood. Oh, Han Dong directly placed the sack in his hand on the table. Hearing the sound of metal colliding coming from the sack, Nina's body swayed. Han Dong said with a normal expression, "You and Mom can use this money. When the time comes, if you want to move to the other side of the Moslabi River, you'll probably need new furniture, right?" Nina did not say anything. Instead, she slowly approached the sack and opened it to take a look. Nina had never seen so many copper coins before. She could not even dream of having so many copper coins. She stood there in a daze, unable to say a word. Even her eyes had become a little unfocused. After waiting for half the night, Nina stammered in a low voice. "Brother, did you use the power you obtained to rob? Don't worry. I got the money through normal channels." How much money is this?" "I don't know. I didn't count it. Anyway, just keep it well. If I have any financial needs, I'll ask you for it. As for the rest, you can do whatever you want." "Brother, Nina was so anxious that she was about to cry. "Count how much money there is first. Just keep it well. When we move to the other side of the Moslabi River, we'll take it out and use it." I got it." Nina held the sack and looked around, afraid that strangers would discover this huge sum of money. Then, she quickly walked to the bedroom she shared with her mother. First, she counted the huge sum of money one by one. Then, she put the sack at the bottom of the wardrobe. As for Han Dong, he returned to the bedroom alone, closed the door, and locked it. When it was time for dinner, Nina would naturally come to call him. Han Dong was not too concerned about the copper coins. Since he could obtain it through the bounty mission, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. What Han Dong cared about was the unexpected gain this time. The ghoul incident this time was not as simple as obtaining the bounty. Han Dong also obtained the Cell Essence, a complete and mature ghoul arm, and the books related to ghouls that Chun-Li found in her house. Chun-Li did not understand English, but she could take the initiative to send her visual images to Han Dong. Under Han Dong's guidance, she found the relevant books. Han Dong quickly read through the books as if he was reading a scientific research document. In a short time, he finished reading the relevant books, simplified the information, and organized it in his notebook. Ghoul, causes of formation, graveyard work, corruption of mind, is commonly seen in graveyard workers or residents living around graveyards. When infected with graveyard fungus or attacked by yin energy, their bodies will be in a graveyard state. Anorexia, aversion to sunlight, fear of strangers, and other characteristics are common. Once such symptoms are discovered, they must immediately go to the chapel to receive the relevant holy baptism. Until the symptoms subside, they must not go near the graveyard. If not treated in time, the individual has a 70% chance of dying and a 20% chance of going crazy. The remaining 10% possibility is that during dreams at night, they will establish a secret mental connection with the higher creatures outside the city walls. From there, they will be affected by corruption and evolve into ghouls. New ghouls need to eat graveyard moss, fungi, and other gloomy things as food. They have a strong desire to eat and are only active at night. Their green skin and the rancid smell they emit are easy to recognize. Once they eat enough and fully mature, ghouls will have the ability to think and try to reproduce and build ghoul nests. Chapter 42. Due to the influence of the cemetery, ordinary people's bodies are weakened. Therefore, when they dream at night, they will be influenced by the thoughts of higher life, forms outside the city wall, and degenerate into ghouls. This Even across a giant city wall, they can use dreams to degenerate people. What the hell is this new higher life form? Han Dong thought that the origin of ghouls was caused by some kind of plague, but he didn't expect it to be related to things outside the city. In addition, it also means that the nature of ghouls has a certain relationship with things outside the city wall. Therefore, I need to wear goggles to reduce visual pollution. Why am I okay? Is it because the faceless skull is immune? Han Dong recorded all his guesses in a book and will slowly verify them in the future. The characteristics of ghouls were also recorded in the book, including great strength, agility, fungal characteristics, and certain regeneration. A flexible ghoul arm was placed on the table. In the next second, the arm was directly taken by Han Dong to the portable prison. Before entering the sterile laboratory, the arm was isolated using the sterile bag in the buffer room to prevent the spread of the fungus and contaminate the sterile room. Han Dong now needed to consider the arm problem. With such a weak body, he must find a way to solve it. The best way Han Dong could think of was to use the point of weight limit. Cell essence has been injected. Weight limit increased by 2 points ghoul sample. First of all, the ghoul cell essence was injected into the cell mass, which was much lower than expected. In this way, Han Dong currently has an additional weight value of 27 points at his disposal. How do I check the relevant attributes of this arm? Before, it was through contact with the cell mass. Then what about now? Just as Han Dong was asking himself, the voice from the skull echoed in the sterile room. Please place the body you want to use on the examination table. Examination table? When Han Dong turned his head, there was a clean table in front of him. Except for a slender tubular scanner, there was no other equipment. Detected a foreign object placed on the table. The scanner began to work, and in less than a minute, a paper report was generated from the side. Mature ghoul's arm. Name is shown in green font. Quality. Good rhesus quality from low to high is as follows. Gray, rough, white, normal, green, quality, blue, rare, purple, unique, pink, epic, gold, legendary, dark gold, empire. Weight requirement, 22 points. Basic, strength slightly greater than normal people. Characteristics, 1. Sharp claws, can cut through hardwood materials and some loose stones. 2. Graveyard fungus. When dealing damage to a target, it will also infect the target. Note, the arm can undergo homogenization and upgrade. Methods such as modification, virus injection, secret strengthening, etc. can improve the quality of the arm and grant additional attributes. I've basically inherited all the characteristics, and the weight requirements are also met. If I accept it, will my arm also become like this? Just as Han Dong was worrying about the changes in his posture, the system's voice sounded again. The assimilated limbs can be disguised according to the host's requirements. This function is provided by the faceless skull. In this way, Han Dong no longer had to worry about anything. His weak body could finally change. Arm in process. Weight limit, 122,127 in the next 2 days. Nicola's family had undergone earth-shattering changes. The school district housing had been divided a day in advance. It was a Victorian-style, single-family building with 2 floors and a basement. It was located on the opposite side of the road of the National Royal Knight Academy. The interior of the house was decorated with metal art and marble. When the whole family took their luggage and left the civilian area of Samay, Nina and his mother, who were sitting in the carriage, cried at the same time. Han Dong looked at the scenery of the river with a blank face. Thank you, brother. Okay. The bag of copper coins cost less than 10 copper coins to buy a full set of furniture. In addition, Han Dong proposed to spend another 25 copper coins to buy steam-powered horses that were slightly modified. The steam-powered horses were more stable and steerable than ordinary horses. It was convenient for Nina to go to the mechanical workshop every day. After all, this Riverview house also had a matching stable. Metal horses were a means of transportation. Middle-class families at least had one. It was convenient for them to travel. Han Dong considered that his night studies would be completely closed, and he would only be able to go home during his free time. He was considering whether to hire a nanny for Nicholas' mother. However, his mother insisted that there was no need to hire a nanny. She said that she was not used to being served by others, so Han Dong did not insist. Moreover, Nina would also return from the mechanical workshop before nightfall to accompany his mother. Everything was arranged. It was the third day of registration. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Han Dong received a call. It was from the clockwork device on his wrist. Warren Nicholas, please follow the device's instructions and arrive at the apprentice night registration office in the academy before 8:30 to activate your night card and receive the freshman handbook. When the call ended, under Han Dong's research over the past few days, the clockwork device had turned into a pointer. Han Dong called a carriage and drove along the almost endless outer wall of the academy for about half an hour before he finally saw the gate of the National Royal Knight Academy. From this, one could see how big the academy was. The bronze gate that was fused with advanced mechanical craftsmanship was in front of him. In the center of the bronze gate was a huge knight insignia. 2 swords crossed over the head of a white horse. Han Dong quickly inserted the apprentice knight's golden card into the socket on the side of the gate. Click, 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 rumble, rumble. Steam power pushed the gears in the gate, and the gate slowly opened. It was not the grassy campus scene that he imagined. In front of him was a pure white staircase that was 100 meters tall. The staircase was sealed by walls on both sides, and there was only one way to go up. This staircase was the staircase of Aries. Speaking of the staircase, it was necessary to talk about the basic structure of the holy city, Nunthina. The national city-state, the Holy City, covered half of Italy. The country's system was a parliamentary constitutional monarchy. The apocalyptic environment, the special talent selection mechanism of the Destiny realm, and the management of the parliamentary monarchy caused the Holy City to have a clear class division. The difference between the different classes was not only in terms of economy, but also in terms of ability. Therefore, in the early days of the Holy City Nunthina's establishment, the Parliament decided to completely transform the inner city. The plan was called the Staircase of the Three Gods. The first staircase had 3 steps, which were the Staircase of Ares, the Staircase of Hermes, and the Staircase of Artemis. The second staircase had 2 steps, which were the Staircase of Poseidon and the Staircase of Apollo. The third staircase had only 1 step, which was the Staircase of Zeus. It was rumored that there was a 4th step hidden under the ground, which was the Staircase of Hades. The construction of the Staircase of the Three Gods divided the Holy City into 4 major urban areas. The difference in elevation between the different urban areas was at least 50 meters. Once the outermost city wall was breached, only the civilian areas in the outer area would fall. At the same time, a second metal wall that was 100 meters tall would rise from the bottom of the Moslavi River to ensure the safety of the first staircase and above. The Staircase of Ares that Han Dong was facing was one of the first staircases. It was also the most special one, because this staircase only allowed apprentice knights and knights above to pass through. It went straight to the National Royal Knight Academy on the 2nd floor of the Holy City. Chapter 43. Walking on the steps of Ares felt like climbing the sacred mountain of Olympus. The reason was the material used to construct the stairs. Every time he stepped on the stairs, he would feel a sense of fatigue as if he had crawled dozens of meters on the mountain road. He relied entirely on a newly acquired ghoul arm to forcefully drag his body and complete the second half of the climb. To be honest, Han Dong felt that it was unfair. A trainee knight who majored in the talent of crusader had a stronger physique than others. It would definitely be easier for him to climb such stairs. After climbing the stairs, Han Dong, who was standing on the platform, could clearly see the civilian area built against the outer city wall, including the Samar area where Nicholas used to live. It was important to note that the 4 civilian areas were built in the east, south, west, and north respectively. The security branch was located near the edge of Samar. It was close to the Ghanaian civilian area where the zombie incident happened and the Black Rose Knight Barton Maldini's hometown. Otherwise, it would take a lot of time just to move through the civilian area. In front of the platform, it was a white stone building with a circular dome. It was surrounded by 10-meter-tall stone walls, and he could not see the situation inside the Knight Academy. There was only one option to enter the white stone building. The door was built with a mechanical structure. When Han Dong approached, steam pushed the piston, causing the large and small gears on the bronze door to rotate. The door opened on its own. The interior of the room was luxuriously decorated with brass as the main material. Rows of steel steam bookshelves against the wall were neatly arranged with various freshman files. At the steel round table in the center sat a special person in charge. He wore a wide-brimmed hat and a large number of metal accessories. The most special thing was, under the brim of the hat, half of the person's face was replaced by brass mechanical devices. Han Dong did not know if the person's brain was still intact. "Please show me your night card." A standard and magnetic voice came out of the half-metal mouth. As Han Dong handed over the card, he carefully observed the person's metal side profile. Through the hollow brass gaps, he could vaguely see a complete and functioning brain. "Warren Nicholas, you have passed the 4-star difficulty newbie event and have chosen mysticism, which has fewer choices. You have passed the interview team's review. There are not many problems with your background and character. Now fully activate your card and add the functions of treasury, school pass, and bounty permit. The living allowances you receive during your studies or the monetary rewards you receive from completing missions will be recorded in the vault. You can go to any bank in the Holy City to withdraw them and enjoy preferential treatment. In addition, you can freely enter the ordinary areas of the Academy. You can also accept bounty missions within the Academy or within the Academy's offices and churches established within the city. The Golden Apprentice Night card was fully activated through a device similar to a typewriter. At the same time, the librarian took out a book with a special metal cover from the safe inside the iron table. It also had the emblem of a crossed sword and a white horse's head printed on it. Knight's Handbook, Academy Edition. The Knight's Handbook has the relevant freshman arrangements. Please follow the instructions and complete the freshman registration process. In addition, the relevant school rules were also listed in the book. It was necessary to memorize all the school rules in a short period of time. Violating the school rules would result in severe punishment. What you need to note is that there is only one copy of this handbook, and it cannot be shared with others. If you lose it, you will need to apply for a new copy from the Academy's management. All right. Han Dong carefully flipped through the contents of the manual. The preface recorded the registration process of the Apprentice Knight in detail. Please go to the corresponding department according to your major profession and receive the course schedule. According to the different requirements of each department, complete the certification and the selection of a mentor. Go to the student dormitory area in the Academy and obtain a random room number through the Knight's card. It's quite similar to a university. I wonder what the mystery department will be like. According to the librarian, the number of apprentice knights majoring in mystery seems to be the least. Walking out of the white vaulted building, green forests with high coverage, open marble roads, metal and kerosene street lamps built dozens of meters apart. The fresh air that entered his body made Han Dong feel refreshed. It gave him a feeling of being in a paradise. As the Knight Academy occupied a large area, there were bus stops at important places in the Academy. After waiting for a short while, Han Dong sat in a spacious carriage for free and headed to the mystery department. Han Dong noticed that there was a guide sign at every fork. The 5 major professions corresponded to the 5 most important institutions in the Knight Academy. However, there were also other important and indispensable institutions, such as Frowny Face Knights Building, which was responsible for managing apprentice knights. Adventurers Guild, which was responsible for issuing dangerous bounty missions in the Holy City. Market, which allowed for free trade and the sale of goods. Machinery Manufacturing Association, Alchemist Association, Textile Association, Authors Association, and so on. Han Dong was very interested in the Alchemist Association. Other than that, he was also curious about the Authors Association. However, the Knight Academy lacked the typical landmark of a university, the library. Due to the different major professions, the library must have been split up and set up in different departments according to the types of books. The carriage arrived at the academy area under the jurisdiction of the mystery department. The originally lush, green scenery of the academy changed instantly. Han Dong did not expect such a huge change. The dense rows of dead black trees formed a clear boundary with the public area of the academy. A large number of crows perched on the branches of the dead trees. Occasionally, the cries of banshees could be heard from the depths of the forest. Occasionally, the shadow of a giant spider could be seen flashing through the forest. Even without a wall, no one dared to trespass into this forest. There was a relatively wide main road that ran deep through this gloomy forest. It snaked towards the main building area of the mystery department. Of course, if one wanted to step on the main road, they had to verify their identity in front of a black metal door. It seemed that as long as one walked on the main road, they would not be attacked by the monsters and spirits in the forest. When Han Dong got off the carriage and took out his night identity card, a crow on a branch flapped its wings and stood on top of the metal door. Its black eyes stared at the card and Han Dong's face. Creak, the metal door slowly opened, allowing passage. Chapter 44. At the highest point of the forest, beyond the dark clouds, there was a special hemispherical room. It even felt like the clouds were carrying this special room. Other than a giant telescope made of pure copper, the room was made of special silica stone that could reflect all kinds of light. Name: Stargazing Room. There were 2 people in the room, or it seemed like there was only one person. A new student is here. He seems pretty good. How can you tell? His body is very weak, weaker than the previous students. To be able to pass the destiny event with such a body, there must be something unusual about him. I remember now. He should be called Warren Nicholas. Is it him? A trainee knight who passed the 4-star event. 4-star. It's been a long time since I saw a 4-star new student. Should we increase the difficulty of the test? I don't think so. Increasing the randomness and variables will allow us to better examine a new student's overall quality and not just increase the difficulty. Moreover, the way he passed the 4-star event might not be through brute force. I'll listen to you. Will the test be held in the Dark Moon Forest or in the tower? The former. There are more variables. Which method should we use? Let him choose for himself. Also, we need to add one more variable. Oh. You're not increasing the difficulty? The variable is not dangerous. It's just a simple variable. Moreover, it's important to his future development. If this young man can see the variable we set, he can pay special attention to it. This is not your style, crow. Such is fate. Caw, caw. The number of crows was much more than Han Dong imagined. The carriage ran along the winding road. Along the way, Han Dong saw crows perched on every tree branch. The rhythmic cawing of the crows seemed to be transmitting some kind of signal. Suddenly, the carriage stopped. It was not out of the forest area yet. There's no road? The forest road that should have led to the Mysticism building was cut off halfway. It was blocked by trees. Han Dong could only walk down the carriage and find a road sign at the end of the road. There were a few strange words written on it. Dark Moon Forest Exit. There was also a directional arrow. It seems like I need to walk through the forest to reach the Mystery Branch building area and complete the new student registration. Fortunately, I came prepared. Han Dong had always believed that fire was very useful. At least during the newbie incident and the ghoul incident, he had to use a torch for illumination. Therefore, Han Dong lit a torch that he had prepared in his backpack and carefully ventured deeper into the creepy Dark Moon Forest. It was easy to lose one's sense of direction and deviate from the straight path when walking through such a dark and dense forest of tall dead trees. However, Han Dong's situation was different. He could clearly realize what a straight line was. Even if his walking route deviated from a straight line due to physical problems, he would immediately correct it. Maybe it was Han Dong's strong sense of direction, or maybe it was the effect of the faceless skull. They walked for about half an hour. Unable to leave the withered tree forest, he found an exquisite little wooden house in the forest that was overflowing with firelight. Ever since he was reborn into this world, Han Dong had seen too many novel things. Maybe this small wooden house that's less than 100 square meters is the main building of mysticism. Let's go take a look. There was meaning in its existence. Han Dong carefully approached the wooden house and circled it. He found that the wooden house did not have a window design. The firelight he saw earlier was only seeping through the gap in the front door. Asterisk, knock, 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 asterisk. There was no response when he knocked on the door. Han Dong slowly pushed open the wooden door. It was just an ordinary wooden house, not a different world as he had imagined. However, there were many exquisite and strange props placed inside the wooden house. It was as if he had entered an antique shop from the Middle Ages. A letter of unknown origin fell right in front of Han Dong. Please choose any complete prop in the wooden house. You can even take down the door and take it with you. However, it must be complete. Walk out of the Dark Moon Forest and hand over the prop to the management office. Note, your performance will determine your overall rating for the mystery branch. Another test. It's just studying, but it's really strict. First, it was the fate event, then the interview, then the background check in secret. And now, do I still need to go through the relevant tests before I go to the major building to register? Han Dong had thought that after he arrived at the mystery branch building, he would be able to use some basic testing equipment to determine what he was good at and from there, plan his future studies. He did not expect it to be carried out in such a strange way. The results of the test will affect your future studies at the Night Academy. Cheer up. After a few days of stress-free rest, Han Dong's condition had never been better. Not to mention, he had reattached a ghoul arm. He quickly examined the various props in the wooden house. Green crystal craft frog in a jewelry box. Morning box sealed with a glass cover. Gas mask fused with the steam style. Stitched pig mask hung on the wall. White silk thread scattered on the ground. Let's not talk about the miscellaneous items in the house. There are 12 options for this special prop alone. Once I make a choice, the test will be conducted. The following test methods would also be decided, and the difficulty level might be different. Let's choose this. Han Dong stared at the morning box in the glass coffin and was about to choose this prop that seemed to come from hell. Creak, the sound of a wooden board creaking, because of the sound of his foot stepping on a special wooden board. This detail immediately attracted Han Dong's attention. The sound of this wooden board being pressed was different from the others. As expected, a hidden compartment? He easily moved the strange wooden board under his foot. In a secret compartment corresponding to the bottom of the ground, a small rusty iron box was stored in it. After checking the items stored in the iron box, Han Dong was a little moved. After a few minutes of consideration, Han Dong chose the iron box and turned to leave the wooden house. Someone's here. The moment he stepped out of the wooden house, the sound of light footsteps came from the forest. For a moment, Han Dong's expression changed, and he entered a state of alert. A green line of plague flowed on the surface of his right arm. Unexpectedly, it was a dirty, black-haired girl who ran out of the forest. From the skin color and facial features, she should be from the Middle East. She also wore 3 golden nose rings on her nose. The girl's hand was holding the golden card that symbolized a trainee knight. She squinted her eyes and asked with a little vigilance, "You are a trainee knight?" "Yes." "Great. I was lost in the Dark Moon Forest for a few days and finally found the right direction." Chapter 45. Han Dong carefully observed the female student in the same batch. Her black hair was messy and tied up in a bun. Golden nose ring, ivory earrings, colorful stone bracelets, and clothes wrapped in woolen cloth. Just like the witch doctor from the Middle East, she looked more like a mystic apprentice than Han Dong in terms of appearance. She should be about the same age as Nicholas, about 19 years old. The girl stared at the iron box in Han Dong's hand with a frightened face. "Ah, you've already chosen? What should I do? I feel that the thing you chose is dangerous. The iron box is emitting a strange aura. Can you show it to me?" "Okay." After the girl saw the thing in the iron box, she was so scared that her body trembled. What was stored in the iron box was not an item, but a pile of uncomfortable things, a large amount of dried skin, special skin, and the layer of skin that covered the eyes. It was because of this that Han Dong chose to bring the whole iron box. The girl from the Middle East kept biting her nails and said nervously and fearfully, This will kill people. Why did you choose this kind of thing? Monsters with strange collecting habits are more difficult to deal with and more paranoid than ordinary evil creatures. It's all your fault. It wasn't easy for us to pass the Destiny realm and live a good life in the Night Academy. What should we do now? Han Dong didn't care about the girl's attitude and words at all. It was Han Dong's decision to choose the iron box after much consideration. He said impatiently, You're right. Huh, this is my choice. What does it have to do with you? You can go to the wooden house and choose another item. Can't you pass the test yourself? After being scolded so harshly by Han Dong, the girl in front of him seemed to realize her problem. She lowered her head and even faintly felt like she was about to cry. That the internal test of the academy allows teams, and it won't increase the difficulty. My sense of direction has been bad since I was young. I often get lost in the holy city and can't find my home. It took me a few days just to find this place. I definitely can't walk out alone. So, I think the main point of Han Dong's concern was not the girl's poor sense of direction, but the problem of teams that he had never heard of. You're saying that teaming up will not increase the difficulty? I got this information from the administrator when I entered the school. So, my original plan was to arrive at the wooden house first, and then wait for the other apprentice knights to arrive. Then, I would take the test and choose a team to pass the test. I didn't expect that I would get lost again, and then I met you here. Forming a team would not increase the difficulty. In a situation where they didn't know what kind of danger they were going to face, having one more person would reduce the risk. Of course, Han Dong also had to consider the possible danger this girl might pose. This test will definitely be carried out under the supervision of the relevant teachers of the Mystery Branch. It's best if I don't ask Miss Chun-Li for help to prevent information about the prison from being leaked. However, the ghoul's arms could still be used. The item in the metal box was indeed evil. If I could clear the dungeon with such an evil item, my rating would be much higher. This was related to my future development and resource allocation. There were many suspicious points about this young girl who had suddenly appeared, but there was a need to bring her along. If she was really an apprentice knight of the same level, it would be good to establish a good relationship with her in advance. Han Dong recalled his school life in his previous life. As an associate professor, he didn't even have a single friend. Every time he met other teachers in the school, he would only politely greet them. Life was very boring. When Han Dong learned that the cancer cells had spread, he only felt that it was a pity that he couldn't complete his research project. There was nothing else that was worth being nostalgic about. Okay, we'll form a temporary team. Since he had the chance to be reborn, Han Dong gradually tried to change himself. Great, Han Dong suggested. Let's introduce ourselves first, especially the abilities that you're currently good at. Tell me in detail. Han Dong had experience in teaming up with apprentice knights to solve dangerous situations together, so he put it to good use. The Middle Eastern girl stuck out her tongue. Yes, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Pasha Bahart. A few days ago, I passed the 2-star Destiny realm. Because I learned witchcraft in the tribe for a period of time, I chose occultism. I haven't gone through systematic learning, so I only know some divination. Divination? Han Dong understood what divination was. It was equivalent to using external objects, usually specific objects such as shells, cards, bamboo sticks, etc., to divine what would happen in the future. You only know how to divine. How did you get lost? Pasha explained, because I'm not very familiar with it. My thoughts are very messy. Especially after the distribution of destiny points, my divination ability has been strengthened. Sometimes I can foresee some future images in advance, causing my sense of direction to be extremely poor. But don't worry, I'm still very useful. I can foresee danger in advance. Han Dong nodded and began to introduce himself. Well, my name is Warren Nicholas. I have a certain combat ability but it's not very strong. A knight who majored in occultism can't be compared with the group of crusaders. It's already very good that you have a certain combat ability. I'm most worried that the two of us only know how to divine. What kind of ability do you have? Can I see it? Under Pasha's inquiry. Under Han Dong's right arm, there was a certain green substance flowing through the blood vessels. Swish! His ordinary fingernails suddenly elongated, reaching a length of about 30 centimeters. They were sharp and curved. Just as the arm was about to expand, Han Dong immediately stopped the further transformation. Wow, you're a mutated plague scholar. Oh, Han Dong still didn't understand such professional terms. I read it from a book. I heard that people who can control plagues are the most dangerous people in the occultism profession. Those who can transform are the most powerful attackers in the occultism profession. I didn't expect you to have these two attributes at the same time. Amazing. Han Dong wanted to say that this was just a ghoul's arm. There was no need for so much explanation. However, if he was mistaken for an occultism ability, Han Dong wouldn't have to explain. Just like that, the two of them formed a team. Han Dong carried the metal box in his backpack and traversed the dark moon forest. The creaking sound of branches being squeezed, the screeching of crows, or the twisting sound of large insects crawling in the forest. Han Dong and Pasha were already used to these sounds. However, there was a strange sound mixed in with these sounds that made them uncomfortable. As time passed, the sound became clearer. Kacha! Kacha! The sound of metal scissors came closer and clearer. It seemed to be hiding behind the twisted, withered tree beside them. Chapter 46. At the same time, just as Han Dong and Pasha teamed up and left the forest together. If one were to look at the entire Dark Moon Forest from a high altitude, Han Dong and Pasha were just two small dots in a vast forest, moving around in a small area of the Dark Moon Forest. Overlooking the Dark Moon Forest, there were as many as 40 wooden houses like this. Inside, there were all kinds of weird accessories and props that corresponded to different demons and ghosts for the freshman test. That's right. This year's Holy City sacrificial ceremony had a total of 32,000 participants. The festival square, where Han Dong was just the southern part of the Holy City where participants gathered. And there were only 400 freshmen who came out of the Destiny realm alive and were given the title of Trainee Knight. Crusader and library were popular professions. About 200 people chose these two major professions. Machinery was second, with about 80 people choosing it. Control was second to last, with about 70 people choosing it. Occultism was last, which was the case every year. This year, there were 8 more people choosing it than last year, with a total of 40 people choosing it. Most of the students who went to the school to sign up at different times would take the relevant preschool test in the building of the school or the affiliated building. Crusader was very simple. First, in front of various instruments, they completed the basic test of strength, speed, reaction, etc. Then, they only needed to obtain the permission of a mentor in the use of weapons such as swordsmanship, boxing, shield, or giant axe, etc. Trainee knights who majored in library had to go through 2 procedures. First, they had to go through a magic detector to test their magic affinity and inclination. Then, they needed to learn the most basic main magic and successfully cast it within 3 days. Machinery school. For students who already had a certain level of achievement in crafting, they were exempted from the test. Other students could analyze the structure of precision machinery and draw it on the spot, or they could choose to shoot accurately with a flintlock. Students who majored in control were required to control ordinary creatures, non-magical creatures, raised in the school's internal farm. As long as they could control an ordinary creature within 30 minutes, there was no danger at all. Only occultism was different. Only a few students would take standardized and non-dangerous tests in the occultism building. Any student who was slightly special would be placed in the Dark Moon Forest to undergo a certain degree of danger. This was also the reason why some of the middle to high-yield young people who knew the inside story did not choose mysticism. There was no need to risk the title of novice knight. Just as he was about to enter the academy and undergo systematic and standardized learning to develop his potential, it was not worth it to die on the way to school. Therefore, mysticism studies became the most neglected department. The establishment of such an entrance test was the request of the highest management of the mysterious academy. The reason why he set up such a dangerous and frightening test was to let the new apprentice knights understand that once they stepped on the path of mysticism, their future would be filled with endless unknown and fear. He had to be mentally prepared in advance. Crack, crack, the strange sound of scissors made Han Dong's heart tighten. It was similar to the feeling of being targeted by an evil spirit in the movie Bewitched. It made his hair stand on end. Han Dong abruptly turned around and looked at the withered tree behind him. Unexpectedly, the sound of the scissors quickly changed and went to another direction. As Han Dong searched for the sound of scissors would always change instantly. As he could not lock onto the target, this made Han Dong uncertain. Once he was ambushed, it would be really troublesome. Han Dong, do you want me to come out and help? It's a little strange that something is targeting you. Chun Li's voice echoed in his mind. You can't come out yet. This is a test in the academy. I have to solve it myself. Now, I don't have a valid reason to explain your existence. What if your life is in danger? Chun Li's words contained a very small amount of concern. You decide for yourself. When the communication ended, Han Dong immediately looked at Pasha Bahart, who had the ability to divine. Hearing the strange sound of scissors, although she was afraid, she tried her best to remain calm and observe around. Didn't you say that you know how to divine? Can you find a target's location? Yes. Yes. As long as you perform divination through the medium, you can always determine its direction. Why didn't you say so earlier? Because once you perform divination, the target will lock onto me. If we can't determine the target's location, we might all die here. The medium, is it the thing in the iron box? Yes. Han Dong immediately opened the iron box, reached out, and picked up a piece of frosted dry eyelid and handed it to Pasha. Lock onto the target's location. I'll think of a way. Ow. Okay. Pasha took out an old metal compass. She placed the medium close to the compass and muttered something. A grayish-white energy flowed out from Pasha's palm, connecting the medium and the compass. A simple ritual was completed. This way, the needle would always point to the scissors monster hidden in the dark. However, the needle did not point in a certain direction. Instead, it was spinning rapidly. It was as if the target was moving around at an extremely fast speed. Impossible. The test's intensity can't be so high. If the movement speed is really that fast, we're no match for it. The needle is only limited to pointing to the target's position in the horizontal direction. The only possibility is the target is at the same vertical coordinate as us. Be careful. Han Dong suddenly looked up, but there was nothing on the tree branch above his head. There was only one possibility, underground. Kacha! Kacha! The monster seemed to have realized that its location had been exposed and stopped hiding. A pair of scissors, flickering with silver light, extended from the soil. It was indeed as Pasha Bahart had said. Due to her directional divination, the monster's target was her. Kacha! The scissors opened and closed. Grayish oil splashed onto the ground. The sharp scissors actually severed the tendons around Pasha's ankle. Pasha screamed as her body fell backward. Danger! The moment the scissors severed the tendons, it immediately moved back. If Pasha fell like this, the back of her head would fall onto the sharp scissors. A green ray of light shot out, pointing at the soil corresponding to the scissors. The plague ignored the soil's obstruction and directly affected the monster hidden below. A series of strange, muffled cries could be heard. The scissors retracted. Pasha Bahart's life was thus saved. The green ray of light was the plague energy shot out by Han Dong through the weapon of destiny. This test arranged by the mystery branch is real. If I hadn't acted in time, this girl would have died, right? It wasn't easy for them to select a talent through the realm of destiny, and they're abandoning her just like that. For a moment, Han Dong focused all his attention, entering a state of concentration when facing death. Chapter 47. Ugh, her hamstring was severed by a sharp object. A normal person would definitely scream in pain. However, Pasha Bahart, who had experienced a fateful event, knew that screaming was meaningless. Instead, it might attract other ferocious insects and mutated beasts in the Dark Moon Forest. Thus, the moment her body fell, she quickly tore off a piece of cloth from her clothes and bid it to stop screaming. This was the only thing she could do. It was impossible to heal the injury. Pasha was just a beginner in mysticism, so she was helpless against such an injury. She had completely lost her ability to move. As far as the current test was concerned, she would only be a burden to Han Dong. In a life-and-death situation, many people would choose to abandon their teammates. However, Han Dong did not do so. He was not showing mercy or being a saint. It was just that Han Dong considered a special reason and had to bring Pasha Bahart along to complete the test. Han Dong prepared a large amount of miscellaneous items in his backpack. Among them was the linen bought from the grocery store, which was used to bandage Pasha's ankle injury. Thank you. Pasha Bahart's eyes were filled with gratitude. However, she knew that the loss of her ability to move meant that she could only wait for death. It was impossible for her to leave the vast Dark Moon Forest. Why don't you leave? I definitely won't be able to walk out of this forest like this. Han Dong patiently squatted in front of Pasha and told her his plan. No need. I might not be able to walk out alone. What happened just now is enough to confirm the validity of your words. Due to the directional divination problem, the scissors monster targeted you. It is now hiding in an underground area to recuperate. You can perform a directional divination again and let the scissors monster continue to target you. Under the guidance of the needle, I will directly force it out of the ground. Let's see what kind of monster it is. Okay, actually, this was very dangerous. If Han Dong did not act in time, Pasha might be strangled by the scissors monster. However, she had already lost her ability to move, but Han Dong chose to stay and give her such a plan. She was so grateful that she naturally would not refuse. As long as she could kill the monster, even if her ankle was injured, she could slowly leave the Dark Moon Forest. The plan was set. Han Dong found a relatively short dead tree nearby. Using the strength of the ghoul arm, he dragged his body to the top of the tree and quietly waited for the target to appear. Pasha leaned against the withered tree and sat down. She inserted the torch beside her and continued to predict the position of the strange figure. Kacha kacha. Not long after, the sound of scissors rang out in the forest again, causing Pasha to tremble in fear. Han Dong used the darkness of a night to conceal himself and focused all his attention on the situation below him. There was a clear green liquid flowing through the blood vessels in his right arm. While waiting, tap, 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 the sound of the clockwork needle moving was particularly clear. In the following operation, if there was even a second of delay or an error in judgment, the plan would fail and Pasha would be killed. 3 long minutes passed. The divining needle in Pasha's hand was no longer pointing in a certain direction. It began to rotate quickly with a small amplitude. This meant that the scissors monster had completely closed in. Nicholas, it's here. Kacha kacha. The scissors cut through the soil and aimed at Pasha's waist. At the same time, Han Dong abruptly jumped down from the top. Although it was the shortest withered tree in the vicinity, it was still about 4 meters tall. With Han Dong's previous physical fitness, it was inevitable that he would break his leg if he jumped from such a height. But it was different now. There was a part of Han Dong's body, right arm, that could withstand the impact of falling from such a height. It could even convert the gravitational potential energy generated by the fall into an attack. Disguise cancel. Han Dong's seemingly thin and yellow right arm. During the process of falling, it quickly changed into a ghoul arm that was disproportionate to the body. It had thick, green, elastic skin and 5 sharp, curved claws with plague attributes. The scissors had already cut through Pasha's waist and abdomen and were about to pierce into her internal organs. Han Dong used the impact of falling to tear open the loose soil with his sharp claws. He came into contact with the scissors monster hidden in the ground. Whoosh! The feeling of cutting into a soft substance clearly came from his fingertips. The ghoul arm offset most of the impact of falling, allowing Han Dong to land steadily. Come out! As the claws had completely pierced into the target's body, Han Dong exerted the maximum strength of the ghoul arm and lifted it up with all his strength. The soil broke open. A monster was lifted out of the ground. However, this monster pulled out the sharp claws that were inserted into its body in midair and retreated to create a distance from Han Dong. It landed 3 meters away. It was different from Han Dong's imagination of a humanoid creature holding scissors. Its festering and shriveled body, empty eye sockets, and obvious stitches between the joints. It was like a corpse that had been dead for a long time and had been resurrected by some evil witchcraft. It also had 8 degenerated arms, each less than 30 centimeters long, similar to the arms of a dwarf. However, these seemingly short arms were covered with hard shells on the fingers and the back of the hands, allowing it to dig holes and crawl underground quickly. As for the scissors, it was not held in any hand. It was wrapped around the tongue that was half a meter long hung outside the mouth. With the forked mouth at the tip of the tongue, it wrapped around the handle of the scissors and could accurately cut the target. What the hell is this? To be honest, such a scissors monster was even more terrifying than the evil spirit in the Destiny space. Especially the tongue that stretched half a meter out of the mouth, wrapped around the scissors, and swayed in the air. It felt like as soon as it got close, it would be pierced by the scissors. Another point. Han Dong's attack did not achieve the expected effect. Although the abdomen of the scissors monster was pierced by the sharp claws, the fungal infection did not spread out. It seemed that because it was made of corpses and did not have any corrosive fungus, it did not have any effect. A product of suturing. The teachers in the mysterious academy who are proficient in suturing techniques can create this kind of manipulator. Pasha suddenly explained the origin of the scissors monster. How to deal with it. The core. This kind of suturing product is powered by the core, and the core maintains their various activities. As long as the core can be destroyed, it can be killed. The core. Is it similar to the nucleus of a cell? Han Dong thought that once the huge ghoul claws pierced the target's body, it could end all of this with the effect of the cemetery fungus. It seems that I still thought too simply, can only fight head-on. Han Dong tried his best to put on a decent fighting posture. This was a simple fighting style he learned from the gym when he was alive. He did not know if it would be effective against such a suturing monster. Chapter 48. Rewind time to a day ago. The day before Han Dong went to register at the Night Academy. During the relocation from the Samar civilian district to the school district, most of the relocation work was completed by the local security personnel. As for the furniture, his sister Nina and mother went to the big market in the civilian district to choose. As long as they paid, the staff would deliver the goods to their home. On this day, Han Dong didn't have to worry about anything. He just needed to rest well. However, Han Dong didn't have any intention of relaxing. He chose to study behind closed doors in his home in the civilian district that was completely empty. First, he read about ghouls for about 5 hours. He had a detailed and in-depth understanding of this strange species. Then, he began to train and use the arm. He didn't have to be proficient in connecting this brand new arm. At the very least, he needed to be able to use it smoothly. First, Han Dong was aware of the weight problem. This arm, which was taken from a mature ghoul, was not compatible with Nicholas's thin body, which was barely 7 meters tall and had been malnourished for a long time. Including the length of the fingernails, this arm could touch the ground when it hung down normally. The strong muscle tissue was almost the same width as the body. It was not coordinated at all. The weight of this arm is estimated to be 20 to 30 kilograms. My body can't bear it at all. Once I swing it, my whole center of gravity will be off balance. I can't fight at all. After practicing for less than 10 minutes, Han Dong couldn't take it anymore. He was sweating profusely and panting. The ghoul arm had the characteristics of great strength, agility, fungal characteristic, and a certain degree of regeneration. However, they were only limited to this arm. Han Dong's physical fitness was still poor. This can't go on. Nicholas's body can't be trained so easily. I have to think of a solution. Before I can explain the existence of Chun-Li, the possessed, I can't let Chun-Li appear in front of others. If I encounter danger during the registration, I have to deal with it alone. A short sword alone isn't enough. I have to control this arm and completely turn it into my own ability. Is there any compromise? I can use the power of the ghoul arm without having to bear such a weight. Han Dong stared at the giant arm. The only thing he can do is to use the imitation ability granted by the faceless skull. In addition to disguising his face, he can also disguise his arms as a human. Was there a way to compromise? Han Dong spent 4 hours switching between his original form and his disguise. Slowly, as the number of times he switched increased, he became more proficient at it. So much so that Han Dong gradually felt the wonderful feeling of switching between the two. He had to grasp that feeling and stop halfway through the switch. Unknowingly, the sky had already darkened. The kerosene lamp in the room had been removed, so the room was pitch black. After a while, a faint green light appeared in the room, scaring some neighbors who were passing by to return home. The green light came from Han Dong's cemetery fungus attribute in his right arm. Green fluorescent blood vessels covered his arm and even protruded outwards. In addition, there were sharp claws that were 10 centimeters long on the forearm. It was short and thin, but it was even sharper. In this form, the arm maintained the size of a human, but the weight remained the same. The green light emitted from his arm reflected Han Dong's sinister smile. Ah, success. This is a compromise. The weight and size of the arm remain the same, but can stimulate the cemetery fungus and sharp claws attributes. Although the power is greatly reduced, I can still freely control it. Han Dong easily waved his right arm. Wherever the claws passed, some corrosive fungal spores would be left in the air. After spending half a day, he was finally able to freely use this new arm. However, Han Dong's practice plan was not over yet. He took out a few white candles from his backpack and lit up the dark old room. Miss Chun-Li, following Han Dong's shout. The candlelight swayed. The red dress floated out. The woman stood in the darkest corner of the room with her head down. In such a scene, it was really a bit scary. Han Dong was almost substituted into the scary scene. His breathing was slightly rapid. Don't scare me. I didn't mean it. Chun-Li immediately tied up her hair with a rubber band. I'm just used to this. This image makes me feel more comfortable. Used? So it's not the intention of ghosts to scare people? It was the first time Han Dong heard such a thing. Once Chun-Li tied up her hair in a ponytail, the feeling of horror disappeared without a trace. Perhaps because of the evil refining evolution, Chun-Li also shed a lot of the rustic aura from the mountain village. The rich, evil aura made her look more cold, and at the same time, it made her skin delicate and cold. Why are you looking for me? Practice with me. Because I can't let you appear in public at the moment, there may be a series of tests on this trip to the Night Academy. I must have a certain level of strength, otherwise I won't be able to raise my head in the academy and affect my future development. Practice with you? I'm worried. I'll hurt you. When Chun-Li's eyes met with Han Dong's, she would dodge from time to time. It's okay. Can't you just stop at the right time? Some superficial wounds don't matter. Then I'll try. Full strength? Try full strength first. If I can't keep up, then slowly lower it. As soon as he finished speaking, before Han Dong could react, a cold wind blew over his body, and a kitchen knife was placed on his neck. Chun-Li was no longer a mild, demonized person like she was in the Destiny realm. After drinking the liquid in the Holy Grail and evolving, Chun-Li's temperament, evil aura, and overall attributes had greatly improved. It could be said that she had completely surpassed the limits of a human. Slow down a bit. In the end, under the training of the two, when Chun-Li reduced her strength to 30%, it was just enough for Han Dong's training intensity. After this training, Han Dong went home to rest until the wee hours of the morning. Time returned to the present. Dark Moon Forest. It was all thanks to this training. Han Dong chose to make a battle plan with himself as the center and face the scissor-stitched monster alone. When the monster's tongue waved the scissors and attacked, the pressure was much less than Chun-Li's. My speed, fear, and courage are all inferior to Chun-Li, if this is the case, just as the scissor-stitch monster was about to approach. A portion of plague energy shot out from the tip of the dagger. It accurately shot into the monster's mouth, corroding the crucial part, the tongue. The long tongue fell to the ground together with the scissors. Han Dong's right arm had returned to its normal size. Green veins protruded from the surface of his skin, and his sharp claws were in place. Whoosh! Taking advantage of the time when the stitched tongue was broken, Han Dong took the initiative to attack. His claws cut into the stitched monster's body and tore it open. A dark core was attached to the stomach wall. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.